Hey guys, what's up? We're live. This is the movie discussion pocket dimension, where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. We're back. There's Jay, and I'm Cole. And yeah, we had to reschedule this one, but hopefully some of you will be joining us. We'll see. I know
Sorry, this is my fault. I'm sorry.
Thursday night's a busy night. If it wasn't you, it could have been me. I don't know. These things happen. But what are we coming off? Oh, right, we did Outrage.
Okay.
Right, we did the Japanese Yakuza film Outrage. That was our last one. Yeah, I guess we must have. Yeah, we missed the week between. That's why it's been a bit of a while. So now we are sticking with, I guess, world cinema, if you want to call it, going to a French film. It has a few different titles. I guess most popularly known as Baby Blood. It's also been called The Evil Within. At least it got that when it had a release in the U.S. I think that was its original title. But directed and written by director Alain Roback, who I've never heard of and didn't know anything about. But it's something like I guess you call it an entry into the kind of distinctly French genre of the fantastique, as it's called sometimes, which is basically just sort of a blending of existing genres. The simplest way to put it is like horror, fantasy, and sci-fi kind of intermingling. As that's how we do it. But in French, they sort of put them all together for fantastique, which has been around as a literary genre for centuries, and of course made its way into film. So we've done other French horror movies, and of course we did a whole little series about the new French extremity movement. They're a little different, although they don't have to be. Maybe the ones we did were a little different, because the ones we did, they didn't. I don't think they had that really a fantasy element to them, did they?
We did some of the ones that weren't as in your face. Like we didn't do like hot tension or anything.
Right.
Just because that's like so popular. We tried to pick more obscure ones.
Yeah. I mean, they were less, if you were going to use the fantastique label, they were less like that. And I wouldn't call them straightforward horror, because that's not right either. But they certainly didn't really have the sci-fi fantasy elements, I guess, that are in a film like this, of course, about a sort of an ancient parasite that seems to have like a human intelligence, I guess.
Yeah.
What's going on? It's very so I'd never even heard. I can't say I never even heard, because Baby Blood, that title rings a bell. I probably did hear it somewhere, read it somewhere, but I never knew anything about the movie. But you've been a fan of it for a while.
Yeah, that's a great title, I think. This is a very, very French film in a good way.
Yeah.
But I first saw this. I mean, it's probably been at least a decade ago. I don't know where I even heard about it. I was just really into French horror and came across it, and I think I blind bought the DVD and really, really loved it. And I gave that DVD away to someone. I don't remember who it was, but and I haven't owned it for years. And recently, I was thinking about it, and I got it on Blu-ray, so it is available. It's relatively cheap, I think, maybe like $10.
It's good that it got a Blu-ray release. Otherwise, you might have really wound up regretting that. Because sometimes movies that get DVD releases, if they're obscure enough, they don't wind up with the Blu-ray. So that can happen.
And you mentioned this did get a I don't know if it was North America, all of North America, but at least an American release that they cut virtually all of the gore out, which that would ruin this movie. That's the best part about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For an R-rated cut, apparently they had to get to. So I can imagine they cut a lot of nudity and blood.
Yeah, which are
gore.
Really the hallmarks of this movie. As you said, Baby Blood gets the title across pretty well, and that what our main character has is like a parasite, but still it's like she's pregnant with it as if it's a baby, and it uses this to sort of psychologically manipulate her too. It says like, I'm your baby, you have to take care of me, protect me.
That's been done plenty of times before, but that aspect I don't think was where she can actually communicate with the thing.
Right.
It's kind of interesting.
The only thing that really confused me, well, I mean, lots of things confused me, I guess, but I thought was a weird choice for the director is like, it infects her, it invades her body, and then we have the time jump of 1 month. And then we have before she's about to commit a murder. We don't know. I guess it probably is the first murder.
I thought her husband was the first murder.
Oh, right.
When
Did
she's
she?
in like that, it's like a tenement, and he comes, he finds her somehow, and
Yeah, that's what I mean. But that is a time. That is after the time jump. It's
yeah,
1 month after
one
she's
month
like
later.
left the circus. He's tracked her down. Yeah, I'm saying
Hmm.
so. So that is if that I figure that is supposed to be the first murder. So it's supposed to be like. But the only thing that was a little confusing about is like at first you have her answering the creature and we don't hear it, and then we start to hear it, and I just thought it was kind of odd that they don't really make it clear if this is the first time it's ever directly communicated with her or not. It seems weird there's not a scene of it like the first time talking to her and her being like really surprised that she has this voice in her head.
Hmm.
You know, they don't do that. Just at first she seems to be talking to it and we can't hear it, and then suddenly we just can. And
Hmm.
I always thought that was a weird way to introduce it because they almost make it seem like, oh yeah, she's been talking to it for a while, she's used to it. I feel like we skipped over an important moment there.
Yeah.
And that's why it made me think maybe this isn't even the first murder, even though I know she does make a big deal about it, like how she can't do it and all this
Right.
stuff. And I mean, there is a certain logic to it being the first murder because you could say like it took about a month in her gestating or whatever to get to the point where it starts to need the outside sustenance, and also
Hmm.
where it gets to the point where it can talk and everything. Even though obviously it has a certain intelligence before joining her, it's a little confusing. Like the movie opens with a voiceover by the creature itself saying that it's part of some sort of ancient race of organisms that's been around since like the beginning. And
Yeah.
it's never really made clear why they all would have died out. And it's never made clear why it did not do. It seems like that, it's kind of like the xenomorph thing in Alien, right? In order, you need a host. Like these things can't just be born on their own. They need a host. So it seems implied that back in ancient times, these things would, they would impregnate or whatever available hosts there were. It's never explained why it doesn't, and that for literally hundreds of millions of years, it's been dormant. And then I don't understand either because later in the movie he says something like, "My species will be the dominant one and take over the planet within 5 million years." And I'm thinking, well, how come that didn't happen the first time around
Yeah.
when there was more than one of you? It's like I don't get it. He
It's
seems to be the only one left, and he thinks that once he's born, he can help take over the planet. Oh, it'll take millions of years, even though hundreds of millions of years ago, he wasn't the only one. There were lots, and they all seem to die out, unless it's just, I guess, maybe the animals they infected went extinct, which is fair enough. Pretty much everything that lived hundreds of million years ago has gone extinct. There's very few things that are still around, unless you count extremely small organisms, and then you might have some species of like sea life or shark. There's a few sharks out there that might be like 100 million years old or something like that, or even predating dinosaurs, so that'd be more than 100 years old, 100 million years. But yeah, so it's a little
it's
confusing on that point. And I know this is not the type of movie you're supposed to question
no.
everything and overthink it. I get that, but I can't. These things go through my brain. I can't help
That's what I was gonna say. It's lots of questions there, which maybe in the French version they flesh that out a little more. I don't know, but I just didn't really put a lot of stock into it. Because I was going to go back and watch the subtitle version just to see the differences, but I just was too lazy and I just watched the English one today
it. Right.
again.
So
So
Jay uploaded this so I could watch it. So I watched his copy, and it was the dubbed. He didn't know that which one it would do because usually, when you upload from a disc or something like that, there's not more than one version. It just so it does it. So the version I watched is dubbed in English, although it had sections where the character spoke French anyway, which we were saying before the show. I'm not sure what kind of choice that is, what that's supposed to mean, because even when it's dubbed, it's understood they're in France and they're all speaking French. So when they go from English to actual French, it's pretty weird, and there's no subtitles there. So, but I mean, I more or less understood what they were saying, at least got the gist of it, although it's pretty rapid French in some places.
I kind of felt like whatever he was saying was just nonsense anyway. He was like telling her about his day. I mean, the main part I'm thinking of
When the
when
trucker picks her up,
yeah, a trucker picks her up and
the
he's
trucker picks her up. He's talking about his life. He says something about how he didn't get along with his father, that his father was a real jerk to him. He says when he was 16, he left home or possibly ran away. He said something about eventually, I'm not sure if he means he married a woman or he was just with a woman, but they were together and eventually she left him. And then it came around to, well, now he does this trucker job and he has the freedom of the road, and that's great. That's more or less what he says. I'm probably skipping over some things, but that's more or less the gist of what
Yeah,
he says to
I
her.
mean, none of that really matters to the plot anyway, because
No, it's just, and then he says like to her, "What's your story?" And she doesn't reply. But then there's a part also in like the diner where for whatever reason suddenly people are the woman that works there is speaking French on the phone.
yeah,
She's trying to find her semi boyfriend or whatever he is. She can't find him.
yeah, we'll get there. I thought their whole relationship's weird, but
Yeah, yeah.
you know, if you're gonna have a dubbed movie, Gary Oldman's the way to do it.
All right. So Gary Oldman is the voice of the creature, and
I'm totally okay with that.
I mean, it is a very good performance. It sounds
As
very
always, he's great in pretty much everything.
monstrous and cunning. Yeah, I mean, Gary Oldman just nails everything. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, you're going to be some sort of weird sentient parasite, Gary.
You're gonna be
Okay,
a white drug dealer with dreadlocks. Go.
Yeah, go. I'm sure he loves the challenge. But yeah, it's a very good, distinctive voice. I mean, I would have liked to have heard the French version where it's actually Roebuck himself who voices it.
Mm-hmm.
Roebuck himself who voices it. So I'd be interested to hear what kind of voice he does.
It's been so long since I've seen that version. I don't remember.
But this one, it reminds me of trying to think something comparable. But if you, and it is sort of comparable. So if people remember, speaking of English dubs, the English dub, or at least one of them, because there's a couple different ones, but the more known English dub of Dragon Ball Z in the Cell saga, Cell's like first form is kind of like insect-like, and whatever the voice actor is doing there is a lot like what Gary Oldman is doing in this. It's sort of kind of thing to it. It's like, you're my mother, I would help you. You know, it's that kind of, it's got that kind of twang or whatever, properties to it. So that's something I thought was kind of comparable. Was the first stage Cell sounded a bit like this, and I thought it is kind of comparable because the whole thing about Cell was like he had to absorb his enemies to reach his perfect form. Although obviously he's an android, but for android they make him very they make him very like organic seeming. Like he seems to have like greenish blood, and yeah, they, even though he's supposed to be an android, they make him come across as very organic. But anyway, of course, this is not an android or a robot or anything. This is a creature. This is a parasite, and of course, like you said, there's lots of comparables. I guess the first thing I think of is the parasites in David Cronenberg's Shivers.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's a very similar scene because when she first gets in, when it first enters her, you know how it enters her, it gets onto her bed and goes up at her. And there's a very similar scene in Shivers where there's a woman in a tub and one of the things gets in the tub and enters her the same way. So obviously I thought of that right off. Very similar.
Yeah, I've been pretty obsessed with like killer baby movies, so I've seen a lot of similar stuff like that. But,
Yeah,
you know,
I guess I haven't really. I have to say that's not something that I've ever really been into or interested in. I know parasite things, and also less to do with killer babies, but I've seen plenty of movies, you know, where you have like a femme fatale, an attractive female that has to use her sexuality so she can kill men for whatever purpose, whether it's species or what is it, beneath the skin or not beneath the skin, something skin.
The Scarlett Johansson movie?
Yeah, that one. Going back to Cronenberg again, The Brood, we just have somebody getting blood because she's more or less a vampire. You know, so there's quite a few of those movies. And even ones like where the woman doesn't do the killing herself, or like in the original Hellraiser, right? We have the woman, she's in love with Frank.
Oh, yeah.
So to help Frank regain his form, she's luring men back to the house so she can kill him and use their blood to resurrect Frank. So there's quite a lot of comparables as far as that go. But no, I am pretty much lacking in the killer baby genre or subgenre, whatever you want to call it. I have not seen too many movies like that. Trying to think what I have seen. I saw one that was like a Spanish movie. Well, Spanish language. I'm not sure it was Spanish. It might have been. And it was about a couple and a woman gets, I don't know. It was one of those religious ones, so it's more like she has like a demon or something inside her. I can't remember what the hell it was.
Not the evil inside.
Could be. I can't remember. It was a pretty forgettable movie, so it's hard to tell. But anyway, that one had a religious thing to it. It was like, you know, it's like a demon or antichrist or something like that inside a woman. But it's really hard for me to remember exactly what even happened in it. Did she have to kill victims? I can't even remember. But yeah, as far as like a woman either she's infected with something or she's turned into something or whatever. Like, yeah, I've seen my share of movies where the woman has to go around committing murders to sustain herself or protect herself or whatever is the case.
Right.
But this is a little different because for a Parasite movie, we've got a sentient parasite that is speaking directly into the mind of the host. And it's weird because at one point she says, like, I don't want to be carrying a monster. He's like, I'm not a monster. I think like a human. I talk like a human. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Which is weird because, again, we don't really get the history of this creature.
Right.
It couldn't have had a human host before because it's never been born. And we don't really get why the leopard, which is the first host we see it in, isn't suitable. So yeah, like I said, the movie raises a lot of questions and just doesn't deal with them. Because the movie, after its long ago flashback saying like all the other creatures left and were born except him, we go to a swamp in Africa, and we don't even see it infecting anything. It just eventually find out that we see like a weird first person view of whatever it is. It gets captured by humans. Eventually, find out it's a leopard.
Yeah.
Humans have captured a leopard, and then we follow the leopard's journey out of Africa into France, where it's sold or whatever to the circus, where our main character, Yanka, interesting name, not exactly a typical French woman name, I can tell you that. So I don't know, more like an Eastern European style name, I think. But anyway, where she works. So it just bursts out of the leopard. Like, I guess the leopard was not a suitable host, and it was just using it as a way to travel. Again, it's not elaborated on, so you just kind of have to just draw your own conclusions, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good question. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it can't very well communicate with, it can't speak English to a leopard, so maybe.
Yeah, that could be true. But I always thought but that was the other thing. Like, is it speaking any language, or is it just intrinsically able to speak the language of whatever it's talking to?
Oh, gotcha.
Like maybe it could convey its wants and needs to the leopard just by being part of it. Like, again, this is just stuff you have to guess. You don't know. But I mean, as far as that goes, you're right. Maybe the leopard isn't an intelligent enough host. For all we know, the leopard wasn't even female. I don't know. Because what's interesting about it is it says it needs to be born, which is a weird thing for something so primitive because stuff wasn't born. This is a long time before mammals came along, and the way mammals give birth and the way, humans give birth is actually much more recent. The oldest organisms laid eggs. So it's interesting that this is something that's so old but needs to be born or birthed in sort of a mammal fashion. But again, it's just sort of to fit the narrative that's being told here. So
Yeah, I mean, okay. You've got the creature just laid dormant, right, for years and years.
right.
It comes out to find a host so it can be born. But what's the purpose of it being born, though? Because all it does is go, well, spoilers. If you haven't seen this movie, obviously we're spoiling it. Goes back to the ocean at the end.
Yeah, it's not explained further either. Like, there must be more. There must be another step in its evolution from the
Mm-hmm.
ocean, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
get to see it, and it doesn't explain it. So yeah, it's important for itself to be born through apparently a human, but then it has to go into the ocean immediately, and you get the idea it's vulnerable in that time. Like, it has to get to the ocean quickly. So they're lucky. They're lucky he wound up in France and not somewhere landlocked.
Yeah. But
Although
again,
again,
it's
maybe it
not
was
really that important to the movie itself. I mean, basically, this is a trashy gore flick, at its heart. So
right.
that's what you're signing up for, not for, high art, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Did you
this
see
movie is.
Inseminoid?
Inseminoid? Yeah.
Yeah, I see that there as sort of a comparable movie, a British horror movie from '81.
Yeah. There's a lot. I can't think of them right off the top of my head. I know The Unborn 2. Those are both great. Those are Roger Corman.
Right.
I don't remember which company that put those out, but what's up, Mikey?
Yeah, The Unborn actually came out just a year after this.
Mm-hmm. There's quite a few. I don't know why I like that stuff so much, but
was
Try to track him
distributed
down.
by something called Califilm.
Okay.
So, as I know, Kathy Griffin is in that movie,
Yes. It may be one of her first films.
and Lisa Kudrow.
Yes.
Wow, that's
Is that Brooke Adams is the lead in that?
she's the lead. Look at that thing. Brooke Adams is the lead. Yeah.
But
Yeah, and they did, and kind of like this one, it had a sequel, but the sequel came out like a lot later.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel is 2009.
No.
Oh no, 94. Okay, no, I was looking at the wrong thing. So yeah, actually, there was not that big of a gap there for sequels there, but this one has a fairly large gap. But it's funny. I'm sure you saw that. Like, we're jumping around, but one of our lead character has temporarily started working at that diner. The first time we see somebody go into the diner, that weird guy with the mustache, wispy mustache, there's like a poster that says "Baby Blood 2" right on the outside, and you have no idea what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah,
Nothing really.
isn't that weird? I don't know.
I mean, nothing really. They're probably like, we probably won't get a Baby Blood 2, but let's pretend there is one.
This was 1990.
Yeah.
And this Lady Blood is
2008.
What year?
2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a jump there.
Yeah. I had it mixed up for a second because I was saying it was the same thing with The Unborn, but no, The Unborn sequel came actually fairly quickly within a few years.
But another interesting thing about this movie, and it's kind of before its time, this is very anti-male. This is virtually every male character in this movie is a degenerate piece of shit, especially at the end, and we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot like sort of how slashers worked in a certain way too. It's like they realize it's a lot more fun for the audience to see people that we don't like getting offed anyway, right? We already feel sorry for the woman, but we're still like, but she's still killing innocent people. But they make it so like pretty much most of the people she's killing, I'm not saying they necessarily deserved it, but they're a lot less sympathetic, than the average person. And like you said, the culmination is the end on the bus, where it's just like a whole bunch of the worst people you could imagine. To the point it seems kind of comical.
Very weird.
But,
very, very funny too. There's a lot of unintentionally funny parts in this movie.
Yeah, especially certain things that just don't translate so well.
Yeah. So she gets, she's already pregnant, right? At the beginning of the film with a human baby. And then the thing gets in there and takes over her fetus.
Okay, so that's a huge thing that I missed. So
that's why she's tracking her weight. You see, she was writing her weights down.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it invaded and pushed out her baby. That's interesting too, because it makes you wonder: is that the circumstances it needs? That it actually needs a pregnant woman, and it replaces the fetus.
Again,
we don't know, but it's interesting because I was saying, like, how do you even get pregnant with something that crawls up inside you? Well, it is interesting if the idea is she's already pregnant, just at the very early stages of it, and this like assimilates whatever. Whatever cells that a fetus are way back then. I don't know. Those people that say life who begins at conception, people will argue, be like, it's a fully formed human being or whatever. They might have that view of it. But anyway, that's an interesting idea that, that's a huge thing that I missed. I did not realize that she was already pregnant. So she was obviously pregnant by her abusive husband or boyfriend or wherever he is. I don't know. He was like, is he the circus boss? He didn't seem to have a job. He just seemed to be the boss of the circus, I guess.
Yeah, whatever you would, I don't know, ringmaster? No, that's probably not
It's hard to imagine. Yeah, like usually like we think of that, but the ringmaster's not really the boss. He's just a guy who's like an MC or whatever. He welcomes the people and talks to them. So yeah, I guess he's just the circus boss, if you want to call it that. And
so she gets fed up, leaves the circus, goes off on her own, steals a bunch of money from her husband.
Yeah.
And then a month later, he finds her, tracks her down. She kills him. And then I think she may kill a few more guys, but she basically just travels around. She's like a, traveling person. Yeah. And then she kind of hooks up with the guy in the diner you're talking about, with the mustache. And he's the only male character in the movie that I am sympathetic for because he actually seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah, like you get the idea he's a bit of a skirt chaser because he has like his on and off girlfriend that's mad at him because he seems to be always going after other women. But for a guy that's maybe going after other women, he's not like as chauvinistic or anything like that.
Right.
And there's an interesting moment where like he does, he goes on like the weird kind of date with her and she's acting well, is that like after they leave the restaurant, it's like the guy knows she's really out of his league, and he just doesn't, and he's just so clumsy and awkward and doesn't know what to do or how to act because it's just like, what the hell?
But
Like, I never expected this to work because this is a beautiful woman,
right.
and I'm this guy that looks like, I don't know, like Rob Schneider with a wispy mustache.
Yeah,
You
he
know,
definitely looks like a
he's like 2 or 3 inches shorter than her.
yeah. But see, she doesn't kill him immediately. Like she kills someone else and then goes back and sleeps with him.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, or whenever she wakes up, and he comes in and finds her having a dialogue with her baby,
Hmm.
and he tells her that he loves her and he wants to marry her,
And
and then
then
she immediately kills him.
then she flips out
Immediately
completely.
kills him, and I'm like, oh damn it! See, I did feel sorry for that guy.
I did. I kind of get the trigger though, in a way.
Sure.
Because it's sort
Well,
of like a reminder that like that's not something she could ever have, at least not while during in this state.
maybe it set something off from her ex-husband or something when because I think he said have kids. Maybe that was it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right too. Yeah, because he mentions having kids, and of course this has turned her completely off the concept. You get the idea that when the movie's over, she's not going to get pregnant.
No.
That I don't know. It's hard to imagine a woman going through that. So
Well,
spoilers, she survives the movie in case we have
she's
some
in this
spoilers
one,
here.
right?
Yeah. Oh, is she? Okay. Well, yeah, because you might wonder as you're watching the movie, is she going to survive this? Maybe the birth will
I
kill her. You don't know what the birth's going to be like. It could rip her apart for all we know. And the
don't
birth
think
is pretty bad, pretty visceral, probably worse than a human.
I don't think anyone or anything would survive that explosion at the end of the movie, man. That is a big explosion. But
Yeah.
anyway, doesn't matter. Suspension of disbelief, I guess. And then she kills him, and basically she's just on like a killing spree until she does give birth to this thing.
Yeah, which I mean, I get it. Again, like as it gets closer, it needs more and more. What the weird thing is, well, as bloody as the movie is, what they're saying is it needs to feed on blood. Like that's why she has to kill them so she can
Right.
get the blood out of them. The movie does not actually show her ingesting much blood. Sometimes she has some
Mhm.
blood around her mouth, but there's not really any scene of her like. And maybe that's to spare us because you get squeamish. Like, because at one point he's like telling her, now, yeah, no, you have to cut his throat and get all the blood out of him and stuff. But there's not actually a scene of her like drinking a bunch of blood.
She drinks some blood when she goes into the like blood bank bus or whatever
Yeah.
you call that, and then she grabs the thing and
Right,
squeezes it
because
in her
there's like a
mouth.
bag of it right there, yeah. But
I
I mean,
mean,
as far as like her victims, we don't really see her like, harvesting them of their blood. We
that
just
may
sort
be
of
more of she doesn't want to drink that whatever the hell the fake blood is,
fair enough.
or not
But I was a
drink
little
it, but get
surprised
it in
because
her
I
mouth.
mean, the movie, like you said, it's like a gore fest, so you think they'd want to play that up like that. She's not just like killing these guys violently and getting them to bleed, but of course she has to ingest the blood because that's what this thing demands of her.
And I imagine this is fairly low budget. I don't know what the budget is, but the gore looks really good. I mean, the kills are really. I mean, there wasn't one that I was like that looks stupid or cheesy.
No,
I
they
think it's
look pretty
really
good. Yeah, you're right.
really
Nothing
well
looks
done.
like overly fake or anything. I'll give it credit for that.
Hmm. Which I mean, hell, we're talking 1990, right? Where the genre was about to die. It was on life support at that point anyway. But the French do things differently anyway. So,
Yeah.
but this is one I really think a lot of people would enjoy, if because I never hear anybody mention it ever,
Hmm.
and it's one I've championed for quite a while now. So, I'd highly recommend it. I know I don't think you enjoyed it very much, but or at least
I was
it didn't
fine
seem
with
like it.
it. I was fine with it. I just I don't like it. Like I said, it reminded me of other things. It's not like it was completely unoriginal or anything. I don't know.
Mhm,
I I don't get the same satisfaction from like creature movies that you do. I
mhm,
don't
yeah,
think.
I do like them.
But I mean, this is a kind of more interesting creature than a lot of them. In that, of course, it has to be born, but also because they give it like a human presence and
Mhm,
human intelligence, which is really weird when you think about it, especially when it gets birthed. Like it's really difficult to describe what it looks like there. I mean, it's a little bit reminiscent. It reminded me of something they ripped off, like one of the aliens in Independence Day look kind of like it looked when it
That's a good
when it
point.
attacks the bus driver.
I don't even know how to describe it. It has eyes and
Has
tentacles.
eyes and has like sort of like a weird shape, almost like a hood, but it's got tentacles coming out of who knows
Yeah.
where.
But
It's
when it's
it's
originally
definitely weird.
born, it's a baby. It's a human. It looks like a human baby.
Yeah, and that's the weirdest part because that's probably what surprised me most when it finally happened and it looked like a
Yeah.
human baby. I was like, no way. I was like, is it just gonna be like a human, like a weird human? And they're like, no, that's just like camouflage or I don't know
Right.
something. It's almost like maybe the rule is again we don't know the rules, but if you is like if it again because we don't know what it needs to be born by. We said it seemed like the leopard was an unsuitable host, but assuming that other things could give birth to it, and I have to imagine because it's not even, it was from the original era. It's not like those were its ancestors. It says it's from that time, 100 million years ago. Obviously, there were no humans then, so they must have impregnated other very primitive forms of life. So I'm losing my thought here. I was going to say maybe the rule is whenever they're first born, they have the form of what they came out of, but then they I don't know
Mhm.
shed it because that's what it always obviously does. But yeah,
If you think
that
about it, though,
that surprised me the most that it looked
like
like a
you said,
human baby at
most
first.
things didn't give live birth. Like before,
Right.
mammals and
This was
birds.
back when it was
Well,
eggs,
birds
whether
lay
it's
eggs.
like the soft kind of eggs that
Right.
reptiles, not reptiles, that amphibians and fish lay, or the more solid that birds and reptiles would lay.
But again,
It's
who
all
knows
speculation. It's all
exactly.
speculation.
But when it starts off, it's like lava right under the sea, or in the ocean. So maybe it's like it was trapped in there or something. It lived in there for until it decided to come back out. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's anyone's guess there too, right? I mean, that could just
Yeah.
be creative license or just a visual thing, but it is interesting. I mean, it's right. There's undersea volcanoes,
Yeah.
and life did spring from areas like that because of the warmth.
Yeah.
If we're gonna get really scientific and we're talking
Like
about
a
like way back, like the Precambrian age, the oceans were warm back then.
yeah, like a primordial stew or something.
Yeah,
Um,
which
you
is
know,
why life was able to get going.
right. When I think about it, I mean, I kind of like that it's so open ended because, I mean, it's a tight movie. It's 87 minutes.
Yeah,
It goes by pretty quickly. Like I feel like if they sat there and explained all this crap to us, it'd be like another 30 minutes long, right?
I guess so. I will say though, it is a little unsatisfying to me that she doesn't ask it more questions about itself.
Hmm.
Like they have conversations to the point where even he asks her stuff about humanity.
Yeah.
She's like, "Why did he put his hand on your knee?" And she's like, "Oh, because he's nice," and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And like you said about the sort of anti-male thing, there's a whole thing where after it's weird too, because like, what kind of math is the trucker doing? The trucker's on the road with this. Maybe he just doesn't like pregos. I don't know. With this weird disheveled woman with a fantastic body. Then he's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to trade up. I'm going to dump her so I can get two loose hitchhikers or
Two
whatever.
two youngsters, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And those
And
two women look so French, man. Like when I think of a French woman from that period of time, like that's it. They nailed it.
yeah.
But yeah, he
You're right though. There is sort of like a French face too when you think about because think of like the weird, awkward guy at the very beginning, the first guy
Mhm.
who's kind of nice to her, the one
Oh
that
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
delivers the leopard. Like his face is a lot like that character actor that we've talked about before because he's in a few of Genet's films. Like he's in Delicatessen
Oh
and
yeah.
he's in Amelie and he's in Alien Resurrection of all things in the wheelchair. Like that face, it's like almost like a face type you can think
Well,
of.
it's
It's
like
like
a Gerard Depardieu nose or something, you know?
yeah, there's something very French. It's the same thing like when I watch hockey. Like the Russian players, they're white guys, but they
Mhm.
have there are such things like Russian faces. I can tell the
Yeah.
Russians at a glance because they just have these features. So I guess you can attribute that to some of the French people too, and sometimes.
Yeah,
But
sure.
But anyway, the point I was making is like, so anyway, after he ditches her for those two, then the creature says to her like, "That's the world of men," or whatever like
Yeah.
that. You know, so just to remind her, it's like, I know you feel bad about murdering them, but you can keep murdering. And let's be honest here, it only needs blood. She could kill anybody. She could kill women.
Yeah.
And I realize it's probably easier because the whole thing is she can seduce the men. If she seduces them, it puts them off their guard and
Right.
makes them easier victims. But it's not like she couldn't kill women or even seduce some women. So yeah, but like you
Well,
said, it
that's
has
easy.
that. It has that sort of. It has that sort of. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say feminist, but that sort of that feminist bent to it. Because I mean, I don't want to equate feminist with anti-male. That's not what it is. I know, but
Well,
yeah,
it's just easy. It's you know, these guys are thrown off because they're trying to sleep with her, or they are sleeping with her maybe, and
yeah.
you know, just to you know, they're at her mercy at that point.
I mean, I like it when she seems to embrace it, and she's just walking down the street, and she's making like weird faces and going, "Ah," I'm trying to laugh, just so as many men as possible look at her.
Yeah,
Like this could be a
exactly.
possible crazy loose woman, you know. I like also during that scene, she bumps into a guy, and the monster or whatever dismisses him as too fat. I'm like,
Yeah,
why is his blood not good for you? Is there
I
too
would
much
think that would
cholesterol?
be
Too much
more blood.
cholesterol. Yeah, I'm just thinking, isn't it? I guess it's quality over quantity, right? It's like I don't
He's
want that blood. It's
he's
fattening
watching
blood.
his weight. I think with the
Yeah,
yeah,
I want to have a great birth weight.
too many lipids.
Do you know your birth weight? I don't know if that's a thing people know. My birth weight was 7 pounds 1 ounce.
I don't. I want to say 6 something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
my
not
sister
sure.
was I think 6 pounds 8 ounces. 7 pounds 1 ounce, which isn't bad considering I wasn't premature, but I was early. I was almost 3 weeks early.
Yeah, it's
So
not too bad.
that's not bad. But I guess I remember because like when both of us were born, I don't know if mother made them as herself, but it's like I have like an embroidery thing
Oh,
that like has my name, date of birth, and then says like, and same thing with my sister. It has my name, date of birth, and then it has the weight in
I
pounds
think
and
that was a pretty
ounces.
common thing back then.
Yeah, probably. So I've that's just something I've always remembered that I was 7 pounds 1 ounce.
Good size.
Yeah. Once you get over like 9 pounds, those are some large babies.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen like the biggest babies. Can you imagine? It's just gonna rip that thing to shreds. Like you've got to cut her from belly button to asshole, you know, to get that thing out of there.
Yeah. I would feel tremendously guilty, even if it was not your fault, you know. It's not my
Mhm.
fault I was a big baby.
Well, they're usually it's their diet, and you know, you you ate too much junk food and stuff. You made me big by being diabetic.
Yeah. So it's always amazing about women giving birth to like triplets and quadruplets.
Oh man, I've seen some pictures. It's like 4 feet out. You know, like god damn. Like that
It,
Octomom lady. I don't know if you
yeah,
ever
like
saw
they talk
her.
about the no. I mean I know what it is, but I didn't see any of the details or anything. I don't even like to think about it. Like when twins are born, they're one is still comes out before the other, obviously. So I'm just thinking, like if you're giving birth to like quadruplets, quintuplets, which is very rare, but just like a one after the other, that sounds like it should just kill any woman. Just the strain of it seems like she should be dead by the time the third one's coming out. But I
I
guess
haven't
the
heard of that
miracle
either.
of birth and modern science, because you have to think, okay, what if the Octomom like existed like in this like the 1700s? She's dead
Oh
for
no,
sure, right? Because think about
no.
all the women that just died in childbirth, giving birth to one woman, giving birth to one kid. Like, oh, I'm gonna love this, aren't I? That's real.
Yeah. She was all in vitro. That's really when you have these like Kate Gosling was in vitro. You know, usually you don't have
Yeah,
crazy numbers of kids naturally,
yeah.
and I think it's probably happened. But
I mean, they're okay, super duper pregnant, obviously, but I mean, it just gets to a point where, like, I don't know. I guess it's just the male thing. I feel like if I got to that point, I'd just blow my brains out before we ever got to the main
I
event.
I totally agree with you.
And if
No
I was
way
her,
she
I'd
looks like
probably
this now. No way.
I would probably murder my husband too. I'd be like, "What did you do to me? What the fuck is wrong with your sperm?"
It's really good.
Yeah, it's
Fat, strong
supercharged. It's
swimmers.
supercharged apparently.
Yeah.
And stuff. Because I mean,
So,
and I know there is stuff too. Although you're not supposed to take it if you're like obviously just normally fertile. But there's like fertility drugs and things, right?
oh yeah.
So imagine somebody who's already like naturally fertile. Like that's the joke about like Apu on The Simpsons because his wife has 8 kids. And they're just like, oh yeah, we like everybody kept sneaking her. Like she didn't take them on purpose, but like her husband and members of The Simpsons all like snuck fertility drugs into her foods, and then she wound up having octuplets.
R.I.P. Apu. He's been canceled.
Yeah, I guess he's not around anymore.
But
like, did they just? So is that he's just not on the show anymore?
I think the character's just not in it there anymore, from what I understand.
I mean, I understand. We're not going to get into this, but I mean, I understand like the place it came from. It's true, but I felt like they really handled it over the years. Now, I do realize that at one point people were disappointed. There's a thing where Lisa makes that comment about something being, and she's talking about something else, but obviously she's talking about like something being introduced innocently enough, but then realizing, that the intent was anyway. She says something like that, and at that moment it freeze frames on a photo of Apu. But there's even like an episode where Aziz Ansari shows up as like his nephew and yells at him for being a stereotype. So I was like, that's about as out in the open as they can get it, isn't it?
I know we've talked about this before, but I really feel like there needs to be some ill will before you go and do things drastic like that, because I learned a lot about Indian culture from Apu. I know that sounds stupid, but
and as people always point out, he's one of the least ridiculous. Like he has his quirks. He's a Simpsons character, obviously, but he's one of the least ridiculous characters out there. And also, he's very moral and he's hardworking. And
he's a
you say, well,
small
that's
business owner. He's living the American dream. I mean,
he's got guts. He's been shot a bunch of times, and he fights against
got a good
Robert.
singing voice. Come on,
yeah, that's right. He sang for an '80s cover band, and
wasn't he in the Barbershop Quartet also?
Also that, but that's what I was saying. If you didn't know, he also be kind of like what happened with like I guess they were talking about like what happened with like Journey, right? There was this like when Journey got a new singer, it was this guy that in the '80s had done like cover bands of them. That's what they did with Apu. They made up like this fake '80s band, and Apu was the singer for like this band he did with Homer and some other guys. But then the real band heard about him and used him as their new singer. And of course, it sounds the voice sounds nothing like Apu. It sounds like just think of like an '80s ballad singer type guy. So I can't remember what they were called.
I know we've talked about this plenty of times, but I just really feel like that wasn't a negative portrayal of someone. I mean, I don't know, man.
And then the whole thing too about he was voiced by like Hank Azaria, I think, right, or whoever. So
I believe it was Hank Azaria.
And it's weird too because like we said, like it all just depends. It seems to always like come nearly down to accent, because depending upon where people grew up or where they were born, they might have an accent from their country or they might not. Right. So I mean, I can think of like watching episodes of Rick and Morty where there's an Asian American psychiatrist, but she doesn't have any accent, and she's voiced by what's her name? Anyway, a big time actress, a Caucasian actress, and of course, which is fine because there's most Asian Americans don't have an accent if they were like born there. Like maybe their parents have an accent from whatever country they're from, but having grown up in the States or in Canada, works in Canada too, they don't have the traceable accent. So I'm just like saying, so what if it seems to really come down to accents, I almost feel like.
I mean, we're not talking about Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany's here, I mean, come on. I mean, that's derogatory. That's not cool.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a visual tool. Like I said, I always thought that it was a fair game as far as voice acting goes, as long as it's not super over the top, because I get it. Like, for instance, I can think of horrible voice acting, again, for Asian. Like, one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life is 8 Crazy Nights, the animated Adam Sandler Hanukkah movie, where, hey, I mentioned Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider voices like this, I think he's supposed to be Chinese guy that owns the restaurant. And it's horribly offensive, and you can
He's
understand
done that
why.
more than once. Rob Schneider's done that
Yeah,
voice
yeah,
in a few
yeah,
things.
exactly right. And to this point, Adam's like, "That's great. We'll make a whole character of it. That's a good idea." And I get why that's horribly offensive, but at the same time, I'm of the same opinion where I think that it's not where I think it's silly to me that Mike Henry, who voiced Cleveland on Family Guy for 20 years, has to step
Yeah.
aside because apparently he's like taking a job from like an African American actor. Something I thought the whole point of voice acting was like you could be anybody. It works
Exactly.
the other way. I can name all sorts of actors of color or whatever you want to call them that that play white roles or whatever, and I don't care because it's voice acting. But
There's plenty of black actors that voice other races as well. I mean,
yeah,
like you said, I mean, once you grow up in America or, Canada, you don't really have that accent anymore,
yeah,
Like I've met Asian dudes that have really hardcore redneck accents. I know that sounds crazy, but
yeah. But I
I've
mean, it's
seen it.
all from where you grow up,
Yeah.
right? So
But the show Big Mouth, which I was a really big fan of, I stopped watching when they did this. But Jenny Slate played a mixed race character,
mhm.
um, and she
Jenny
stepped
Slate's
back
white,
from that.
right? She's
She's
white,
white,
right?
or she's
Yeah,
Jewish, I think, or
well,
white, I guess
right, yeah,
technically. But she stepped back from that role. When all this was going down, it was all the Cleveland, Apu, all that was right around the same
yeah.
time. And I guess she was, trying to be proactive, and she left that role. But I was like, but does that mean you're going to find a mixed race person to do it? Because I just don't know. It's like where do you draw the line there?
Yeah. It is weird because I mean, I do talk. I say the point to me about voice acting is like you have an ability to voice different characters and do it. But I do realize there's still limits to that because you don't want somebody doing an offensive caricature. But I mean, I don't know. Can we get to the point where we can tell the difference between an actor of some race doing the voice of a character of another, and it's okay, and it's not like some I don't know. Like I don't see how people weren't like honestly people weren't saying the portrayal of Cleveland was offensive as far as his voice goes. In fact, he said, I based his voice on like a black guy that I knew that had kind
Right.
of like a weird voice like that. I used to play basketball with him, and he had that kind of voice, and that's what I based it on. People were more so saying that like an African American actor should have that job, but I don't know. Think about it this way: like the other point of voice acting is like if you look at like any popular cartoon, like The Simpsons and The Family Guy, they only have a handful of actually regular actors. They're
Right.
playing multiple roles. So
Right.
don't talk to me about taking somebody's role away or something. So now we're just saying, okay, well, let's make it fair then. Voice acting is no longer a talent. So if you're going to have a cartoon, an animated show, everybody can only play one character. Period, which like does not make use of their skill sets or their toolboxes because that's the strength of the voice actor. Most of them, anyway. That they have they're versatile. They can do all kinds of different
Mhm.
voices, like Mel Blanc or whatever.
I
And
would
now
like
we
to
want
know
to
what
take that away from them.
I would like to know what voice actors have to say about this, because like you said, it's acting.
Mhm.
It's
And it
that's
is
the
voice. And I
the
get, like I
word
said, like the Rob
acting.
Schneider thing can be offensive, but still, if you take away the visual and just leave it to audio, I don't think there's like, we'll say like a blackface equivalent in voice acting. I don't think. Although, I mean, maybe, because I can come up with a very offensive black stereotypical voice. I can hear it in my head. I think we all can. I get that. That's what some people say about, like the crows in Dumbo, right? Which is funny
Oh
because
yeah.
as a kid, of course, that never registered for me as a kid at all.
Oh, no.
Never occurred to
What
me the
about
crows
the?
were supposed to represent anybody. I thought they were crows.
I never thought about that either.
And I
Never.
thought, okay, they're country guys. They're crows and they live out in the country. They got like a country accent. That was the extent of it for me, but it's all so complicated.
What about the natives in Peter Pan?
Yeah, I get that that's bad. I
Yeah.
don't think we should cancel it. I just say, I cancel it and bury it. I say it wasn't good. It was 1953. Even back then, they should have known better, and we'll do better in the future. Is kind of how I feel. But I don't feel like cancel it or take it off Disney Plus or you can't sell it anymore or anything like that. I mean, we've made this argument even for Song of the South. Like I fully understand parts of the Song of the South that are definitely will use the word problematic, even though it's kind of an annoying word sometimes. But I don't believe in burying it. you know, I feel like most movies and things like this, we've had this discussion a lot. I think if you can have like some sort of like disclaimer at the beginning to, explain context a little. Again, context doesn't excuse everything. I'm not saying that. So like, oh, it was a long time ago, so racism was okay. No, racism was never okay. But you just have to
It's
take into context.
exactly. I mean, when that movie was made, like times were different. I know it's hard for people to understand.
Yeah, because you could be like, let's say it's like 1900, you're living in Britain or whatever like that, and you are a super not racist person. You like other races, and you get along with them, which makes you different from most people. And yet, all you're hearing from the scientific community is how that they're inferior, and they're saying this is scientifically true. you know and I mean, it's pretty hard for people in that position, because then the best they could really do is like, well, I don't hate them or anything bad to happen. I guess scientifically they are inferior because that's all I know. Are we still supposed to judge that person as a terrible person? What are they supposed to do? I mean, and you could say, well, just talk to some people of other races, and I'm sure they did. Again, I'm talking about people who were overtly anti and not racist. I'm just saying they lived in a world where the whole world was shouting racist nonsense and racist lies at them every day,
Right.
all over the place. And I realize it's even worse to be on the other side of that, because I'm not saying, oh, poor white people, they didn't know they were I get it. It's even worse to be on the other side of it. I'm just saying, of course it does work other ways. I mean, the whole world has been a racist free for all of existence until the last few decades. I mean,
since we were able to go to another place.
Yeah,
and
it's always like two countries. This country's like, hey, the people in that country, they look different than us and they talk different from us. We must be better than them. And in that country, they're saying the same thing. Those people over there look different and they talk different and they have weird customs. I don't feel bad at all about the war we're having with them, because they're different and bad, and that's sort of been human history for a long time. And only now, in very recent decades, have we started to turn a corner on it, which is disappointing when you look at humanity as a whole, but it's also encouraging because at least we're living in those times now. But yeah, I just mean, so that's what I mean by context. So that's what I mean by context. I don't mean a long time ago it was fine, it was great that everyone was racist. That's not what I mean, or that it's excusable.
I totally agree with you. I just feel like there's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction these days to
the voice acting thing. The voice acting thing really bothers me, because I'm a big fan of all sorts of animated things and video games and all that. So I have a lot of voice actors I like and have always liked, and I like their talent. And I mean, voice acting is the same as normal acting. People of all races, by all means, should be involved. But especially if you're talking about like non-accented characters, I don't see the harm. And it's true, like in places like North America, you can have people of African descent or Asian descent or whatever, and they don't have any accent that's actually tied to those areas. Right. So, I mean, is that really problematic for, say, a Caucasian voice actor to do? I don't think so. The one, darn, I had her name again, and I lost. Susan Sarandon. It was Susan Sarandon.
Oh, really?
Just a minor role. Susan Sarandon, a couple times, has voiced a psychiatrist on the Rick and Morty show. The psychiatrist is clearly Asian American, and Susan Sarandon is just speaking in her normal Susan Sarandon voice. Now, is that some sort of crime? Because guess what? There are plenty of Asian American women that sound like that. Exactly. They don't have an accent, so
Exactly.
So I don't think that's any issue, but I don't know. Just like it's funny, if you listen to Cleveland on the show, Cleveland's voice does not necessarily, it's true. Sometimes you can hear a voice and you're pretty sure that was a black person, their voice. You can fear, but not everybody, right? Not all black people have necessarily a notable that timbre to their voice. And Cleveland, not necessarily either. Like if Cleveland used that exact voice, I mean, if Mike Henry used that exact voice for a white character, you wouldn't bat an eye. You'd be like, it's a voice. So I don't know. I really like voice actors, and I feel like you're cutting them off at the knees if you're saying, you can't voice a character of another ethnicity on like an animated show. I mean, as long as you don't make an effort to change your voice into some really obvious offensive caricature of that race, I don't see the issue, which is the difference. That's what I was saying about like the Rob Schneider thing. It's really bad. He's like, man, it's all solid,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If Susan Sarandon did try to do some sort of accent, that would be wrong, right? Her doing her normal voice is probably the best thing she could do there,
Right. And
as
again,
far
it's
as
not like
not being
it's
offensive.
not like it's a weird stretch or a weird string. Plenty of Asian American, Asian Canadian women don't have the accent, and so they
Mhm.
sound like that more or less. So,
I would say most don't. In
yeah.
fact,
I
if,
mean,
I
you
mean, if
had
they
to.
were
I mean,
born in the
really,
country,
yeah. If you're born in the country, right? Exactly. So,
And
anyway, it makes me sad. I'm still waiting. Like, uh, I guess it's testament to like how long the animation process is, and that like the newest season is still ongoing, and I am yet to hear whoever this new voice actor is because it shows like how long the process is. This stuff was recorded ages ago before we
right.
actually see it. So I'm still waiting for the first episode of Family Guy where somebody else is doing the voice. It's not Mike Henry. I guess it's coming.
It needs to be totally different. They can't try to do Cleveland's voice. That's not cool.
You think?
'Cause it was such a unique voice.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
another one where it's like, what was the point then if he's going to have the same voice? And then it's like, well, the point was now finally, an African American has that job, which I don't agree with, but I know it makes me sound like an asshole, but it's not what I mean. I just don't think about using your talents as a voice actor as taking other people's jobs. Like, think about it. Like, take race out of it and just talk about different kinds of characters. There's people that, again, a talented voice actor can usually do like a scary guy voice or a big guy or a little guy. I mean, again, are you taking jobs from all those literal people? Like, we need a fat guy to voice a fat person. This is getting
right,
a little,
exactly. I mean,
getting
where
a
do you
little,
draw that line?
yeah, it's getting a little ridiculous.
I mean, I'm playing a character with one eye. Do I have to have only one eye as well? I mean, like,
And if you do, and if you voice a fat character and they have kind of like a husky sounding voice, is that like offensive? Are you now mocking fat people? Like, I mean, come on.
fat shaming.
Exactly. The fat people are like, we've been mocked all along. We don't give a
Yeah.
shit. We're too used to it by now. Do whatever you want.
I just, like you said, taking race out of it, I think, is the key to ending racism in general. I think people are focusing too hard on what they are. It's skin color, man. That's why the fucking aliens are leaving us alone, because we're still battling over fucking race. That's so stupid. We're in the dark ages here. It's like we're getting worse,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, I'll end my rant. It's just something very important to me that I think it needs to be not focused on as much, because at the end of the day, does it matter? I mean,
I mean, we definitely have made a lot of progress, but I think sometimes we get hung up on things, the wrong things. As
like
I said,
this.
I'm not one of those white people saying, "Oh, everything's great now, everything's perfect." No, I know that.
I mean, what about Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, right? Or is that it?
Yeah, Tropic Thunder. I mean, again, I think that's really context, because the point was within you're supposed to watch it and think, "Oh my god, what kind of asshole is this actor?" Right? Like, that is what you're supposed to think. Which is why, like I said, when I brought up a few times, like there was like on 30 Rock, there was a brief scene of the character Jenna actually putting herself in blackface. The whole point of that scene is so that you're like, oh my god, like Jenna is such an idiot, and she's
exactly.
and she's so oblivious, she doesn't realize what she's doing, and all the characters around her react appropriately. You're like, fuck no, you can't do that, Jenna. And
but
yet
Jenna's a piece of shit. That's the whole reason, to show she's
like
a piece of
shit. She's a self-centered idiot that doesn't realize what she's doing, and everybody reacts properly in that scene.
Yeah.
So then to like pull the episode and have Tina Fey apologize and say, "I realize now context doesn't matter." I'm like, it doesn't.
Context does matter.
Because the whole point is like, they're not saying, "Oh, look, she's in blackface. That's hilarious." They're saying like, "What an idiot this stupid character is," and look at the reactions of the characters around her. You can't do that, Jenna. Jesus, stop.
I mean, like, Sean Penn's not retarded. I mean, he took a job away from a retarded actor. Sorry, whatever, special, whatever you want to call it. It's a special person. Like,
yeah. So I mean, I don't have any. So I think again with the Robert Downey Jr. thing, like that's the point that's being made, and you could still say, but at the end of the day, it's still blackface. I was like, I guess, but I mean, they are trying to make a point about it. I don't know.
They're commenting on how bad it is. I mean,
yeah, that's what it is. They're saying like he's playing like an actor who has like such an ego that he thinks he can. That this is what he has to do to play roles. Like, they're pointing out how absurd and stupid that is. So yeah. So I think if people are really actually offended by that, they're not very smart. They don't understand what's going on.
Context does matter. Like,
yeah,
there was an episode of The Office I don't know if you remember the episode of The Office where Michael Scott he does a really stereotypical Asian voice that's not good,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
King or something. I forget the name of the character, but
Yeah.
the character he's doing. But that's exactly context. That's showing he's an asshole. He's a piece of shit, and it's showing us that through him
Yeah.
doing that
The show is
terrible
not
voice.
saying, "Oh, look, it's funny," and this is how we represent Asians. Like that's not what the show is doing. They're saying,
Right.
like, "Look at this idiot. This is the wrong way," and
Exactly.
people, and I think people can relate to that. I'm sure there's Asian people. Again, I don't want to speak for people, but I can make a reasonable assumption. There's people of Asian descent, Asian people that have watched that and actually enjoyed it because they're like, "Yeah, that reminds me of like some stupid, moronic, racist people." I think it's like it's an acknowledgement of it. It's not like saying, "Oh, it's funny and it's great." It's
Right.
showing that it's something that it still exists. So
That's what I think people are missing the point.
I do think context matters. I don't
It
think that we
absolutely
have
does.
to hang our heads and say we realize now that context and intent don't matter because I think they do. And then that's very different because I'm not talking about historical context or anything. Because I'm not trying to use the lazy argument. It was from X many years ago, so that was okay because they didn't know better. I don't mean that. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about here.
So
I know it's very complicated, and we're not the best people to talk about it. But I mean, I don't know. I'm
uh,
trying to show that I'm against racist stuff. I absolutely am, and I know that Jay is too. We are not trying to hold on to old racist attitudes and things like that at all. That's not what anybody wants to see.
I just think it's some overreactions that's going on, and yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, funny how we stumbled onto such a serious topic during baby blood, but these things happen.
Yeah, we were so on topic too. Well, while we're off topic, before we get back on, you want to briefly talk about Yellowjackets? We won't spoil anything for anybody.
Okay, I guess you want to get it off your chest because you were kind of disappointed with the way it sort of turns out. I guess for that first season. So I watched it a few months ago, and I was mostly satisfied. It takes a little while to pick everything up because there's a lot of characters, and there's also like a present version of the character and a past version, and it also takes a while to understand who are the important ones because for a while there's a lot of them. You're like, and then some of them just like obviously they must die because we don't see it. Although some of them I thought they were holding out. Okay, we'll do a bit of a spoiler here in that so the captain.
Well, we know who. You don't see the adult characters. You know that they die.
I think, but I also thought running through that there's got to be at least one, right? Who they haven't shown on purpose just to trick us, to make us think, oh, they must have died, and have them show up. Like I was waiting for that. That's what I thought maybe they were going to do with the captain. But they actually do show her death as you get further on, and it makes sense because also you see in the present, her own parents talk to, whatever that character's name is, and they say, we don't blame you. Yeah, we don't blame you that you wound up getting married to her boyfriend and you survived and she didn't, that we're all okay with that. I thought, oh, maybe a twist that like they only think she died and she's actually still alive somewhere. I think there's still at least there might be 2 or 3 characters where I think that's still possible. Where it hasn't been confirmed yet that they're dead. We haven't seen them in the present, but maybe we will see them. So that was one thing. But anyway, I like the show definitely. I mean, I like
was
stuff,
really
but
into it, man.
I like 90s stuff. I like high school girl stuff.
They played that 90s up real hard, didn't they? Like Snow Informers on the radio. Come on, man.
Well, it was on the radio. I mean, certainly in Canada it was. That was a big hit in
but
Canada.
I mean, not in 94, I don't think. Well, maybe it was
96.
Oh, 96. Okay.
Yeah. I think it came out in 94.
These girls are only like a couple years older than me, so they're roughly right around my age. So I grew up with all that music, and all that stuff, and everything.
I would have been in grade 7 back then. These girls were in I guess it's not explained, but I mean they're in various years of high school. I'm sure some are maybe a year ahead of the others or something. They're probably not all the same exact age.
I know one of the girls.
They're all high school age.
The girl who doesn't go because she got her leg broken was a sophomore, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Or she was younger than the other ones. But yeah, I really enjoyed the show up until the fizzle at the end. But they Basically, what it is you've got this soccer team. They're going to nationals, and their plane crashes in the middle of somewhere. I don't know where it is. I don't know if they ever say, but in the middle of the wilderness, and basically they have to survive for 2 years before they're rescued. And a lot of weird shit happens. There's lots of supernatural elements. There's lots of in drama between the girls, and then it keeps flashing forwards and backwards to present day, where there's another mystery going on they're trying to solve, and it's just a lot of stuff in there, and it's a really hard show to describe.
So
to
the
someone.
present is on the surviving girls who are now in their 40s.
Right.
Surviving girls who are all kind of mini celebrities for having gone through this. People know who they are, and they know, well, they obviously don't know the details of what happened, but they know the gist, that this was involved. So they're all kind of semi-celebrities. And the new sort of mystery is like somebody seems to know details about what happened, because they never told details. Their story to the press was, we crashed and things were hard, and some of us lived and some of us didn't.
Right. They all kind of had a generic story that they told.
They left it until we were rescued, and they left it at that. And we, of course, find out that some real Lord of the Flies shit actually wound up going on too, and they definitely killed at least a few of the others and even ate them, things like that. And
that's not a spoiler. That's like you find that out in the first 5 minutes.
The opening is seeing them hunting one of their own to kill. I still don't know which one the girl that was.
I know. I've got a few ideas. I won't say.
I've tried so hard watching the show and committing every to memory. Like I can eliminate like 6 or 7 of them right off the bat. Can't be her. Can't be her. Can't be her. And I'm still not sure who that original girl was.
And we know who it wasn't.
Yeah, we know who
but
it was.
It still leaves about 5 girls that it could have been, because they're all, most of them are white and they're all similar builds.
Yeah,
athletic.
I was thinking that maybe it was the religious one. Then you find out no, she dies in a very different way. The most sort of overtly supernatural way, I guess, to show that they're really trapped.
Yeah, that was wild. That was a wild scene.
Because honestly,
something was going
until
down,
then, I wasn't sure, how real the supernatural thing was, like how much of it is in their heads. But no, there is some real force out there that has not been explained yet. And obviously, something happened to whoever owns the cabin they found too. Like
right. Well, that's yeah.
So I mean, to all that, I was definitely less interested in the present stuff. And
I agree.
Oh my God, is her name? Is that Juliette Lewis?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't really look like that, right? Like, they did something to make her look awful.
No, dude, she looks rough. But didn't she play that role so well, though? She did an amazing job on that.
It made me sad, because I liked her past self. I was just like, Jesus, what happened to her?
48 years old now, so.
She's so pretty, and now she's aged into this, like, train wreck. Not just looks, but I mean, like, she's actually pretty stable as the girl. Like, yeah, they make fun of her for being like goth or dark, but she's really pretty normal, right? Like, she's not all, and yet she's a fucking train wreck. She's in rehab and can barely, I don't know, and she's got this gravelly voice, and she hates she's 10 times more angsty as a 40-something than as a teenager.
I know.
Like, way more angsty. She just fucking hates everybody and everybody she's suspicious of. And she's and yet her past self was practically vivacious in comparison.
She's been through a lot of stuff in her life, man. I totally get it.
The character? Yeah, sure.
I mean, even prior to the plane crash,
I suppose, but I mean, stuff about her dad. Yeah, I know, I remember. But still, she carries it off. Like I said, like the joke is at first, okay, well, not the joke, but the girls, they have to separate them somehow. So they make some of them almost stereotypes, and she's kind of like the dark gothy one. She hangs out with dudes and stuff.
She would have been my girlfriend.
And they're judgmental of her. And like one of them's like, don't you have like drugs to smoke and dicks to suck? And the truth is, she's not really like that. She's not like she's a like a varsity athlete, or we want to call it. So
call her burnout.
And yet she's aged into the burnout that they all said she was. And that made me really sad. And man,
I just thought she killed. I thought the young girls did a great job acting, and the older women did as well.
It's all good acting. I don't think there's any bad acting in there. That's for sure. I'm just saying I found the present day stuff not as interesting as you might.
I totally agree with that. But I don't know, man. I just feel like they kind of trolled the fans with the way that ended. And then I was watching my wife screaming at the fucking TV. I'm like, oh, fuck. Is there going to be a season 2? Do we even know that yet?
There is going to be a season 2.
Big cliffhanger. We don't find out shit. And now we got to wait a year, however long.
Yeah.
So fuck
It
that.
doesn't bother me because it's the things just got real type ending, right? It's like
It
you
just,
haven't seen anything yet. It's like we're at the next level. I get that that's been done and maybe done better, but it didn't bother me at all. I mean, obviously, I
I mean,
am impatient.
why
I would like to
does
see.
American television have to keep fucking going? This is something that didn't need multiple seasons, man. We had 10 hours of television to watch. Like, wrap it up, you know? Like, let's go.
I
I mean,
guess I don't know. I figure they're telling a really complex story. Although there is stuff I would easily cut from the present day. Again, like
sure,
what's the
sure.
whole thing where she has like the affair with the fake boyfriend and kills him by accident? Like,
Well,
does that mean anything? Like I thought it was for sure he had something to do with what was going on,
I
but
did
no,
too.
she's just completely he's just this big
Red
red
herring,
herring, and
big
he's a
time red
waste of
herring. Yeah.
it's a big waste of time.
It is.
So I'll agree about that. That's a big waste of
It
time.
is, but
That was the main thing that bothered me about the show
that's
was that
more
whole thing
showing.
about her cheating on her husband. And the other, I guess that's the other like real thing where they pull the rug out from under you because you watch that her husband, who was like a popular jock that was her best friend's boyfriend, and he seems like such a jerk, and yet he's matured into a really responsible husband and father, which
For the
I
most
think
part,
is kind of a shock because
he's
he's not having an affair.
yeah, he is. He
Oh,
isn't.
he is? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing was he wasn't.
No.
And this whole thing is he got pulled into something illegal or
Oh, okay. I
something
must have missed that part
by
then. I'm gonna
accident, right?
rewatch that last episode. Um,
Yeah, I no, he was not having an affair. He was meeting that woman for other reasons, I'm pretty
gotcha.
sure. But anyway, and
That
he's also super supportive, and and he always says, I never regretted that, we wound up together. I never think about my life if I had kept her, even though she was better than you in every way, and she
yeah,
absolutely was. And I think that's the other thing. They try to dump on the captain like she was some awful person, but I never saw it. She just seemed like an ordinary girl. I mean, she wasn't
yeah. They
perfect.
like
She
the
made
popular
mistakes.
bitch, right?
Yeah, but she was a good captain and she did care about them. And if she could be a little dramatic, holy hell, it's a bunch of teenage girls. They're
Yeah.
all dramatic. But they always try to make it seem like, oh, she was like some stuck up bitch who thought she was better than everybody. And I mean, she does have that moment. Like it's sort of like, because she's saying like, about how they need to really be in sync for stuff. Like she's like, when they're talking about like losing your virginity, like
Mhm.
that's really stupid. Because she's saying, I think it's a mistake to still be virgins before we go to college. And she's like, if you're going to do it, you got to let me know and all that stuff. Although I guess some girls
I,
do think like
I
that and
don't
talk like
know if
that.
that's
Fair enough.
accurate or not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. So I mean, that was a little annoying. But again, I didn't think it made her different. I made a lot of the girls were like that. I mean, the obvious bitch to me is the one that became the politician. She was just awful.
She's very
She's the one that
controlling.
injured. She's the one that saved that one's life inadvertently by destroying her leg, just to smash it. And she's very controlling. And as an adult, she's the same thing.
Yep.
And I was so confused about what was going on with her. And then when they explain it, it's kind of unsatisfying.
Thaisa, I believe her name is.
Yeah, Thaisa.
Yeah, she's like a lawyer running for some state senate office.
Yeah.
Of
Anyway, I didn't like her character in either thing. I thought she was the obvious kind of bad one, not
is it
Josie
Missouri?
or whoever it was again.
Are they in like St. Louis?
I thought they were in like New Jersey.
That's kind of what yeah, you may be right. I don't know. I'd be thinking of something else. No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of a completely different show. I just felt like, I needed some resolution,
Yeah, they're in New Jersey.
And I didn't get it. So,
yeah. No, I was pretty sure it was going to end where it ended. Yeah, it didn't surprise me or really disappoint me. We'll see. We'll see if it goes off the rails in a second. But no, I didn't have any problem with that ending. I thought it was kind of cool that it ended on the note it did, because we finally get some sort of tangible proof of the supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
In a way, like, again, it's not so tangible. It's like they could just all be out of their goddamn minds. But, there is, you get the feeling there's something more to it. I mean, there's the whole thing where the girl starts like babbling in French, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sort of a tip off.
That was cool. Yeah. You don't know what's going on with her. Marnie or what?
I was super surprised to find out that even, in the present, one of the big things going on in the present is we never get to meet Travis. And when at the time they find Travis, he's dead. It looks like a suicide, but she's convinced he's been murdered. I mean, I was just surprised to find out he survived. I thought for sure he would have been one of the ones to die out there, but apparently not.
He almost did.
Yeah, he almost did, and I'm sure they all have their close calls. The ones that did survive.
Like, how did the one girl? Well, fuck, I don't want to spoil anymore, but I just think some wounds would get infected. Right?
Yeah, I think so, but I think that is sort of a creative license thing too, right?
Yeah.
People
Well, I mean,
people surviving in these situations, they try to make it visceral, but also they have this idea. It's like, well, we have to have some people live, so we'll have to make allowances for them living, even if it's a little unbelievable type thing.
I guess before antibiotics, I mean, we had to, we didn't all die of infection, so I guess it's
Yeah.
definitely possible. But
Some people could get lucky, I guess. I definitely wouldn't be the one. I'd be the one who got like a finger cut, a little cut in my finger and died from that.
right, we got to take that arm off.
Yeah, I assume that would be my luck out there. But no, I like the show. Maybe I'll give it another watch. It's actually been quite a while since I finished it. I jumped on it early when it came out. I was actually after I watched like the first 3 episodes, but then I'd caught up to the rotation. So I was actually watching them at that point, like as they came out, which is not something I usually do. I'm usually slow to these things.
That's why I waited until it was
Plus,
finished.
I'm not like I don't usually follow shows either, but this one appealed to me right off the bat. I liked it.
Yeah, you're the one that kind of told me about it. I'm like, Lord of the Flies with girls, I'm down. Like,
yeah.
Which that's what I got Showtime for. Really, I've got a few. I'm gonna watch.
It took me like a million episodes to figure out who Christina Ricci was because she's
Isn't
so
that
different
crazy?
looking. That's quite the transformation for Christina Ricci.
Yeah, that character's a bitch.
Oh yeah, she's like literally
Psychopath.
crazy. Yeah, which I think is cool. Like that she's like this crazy one among them, and that's what. Because she's also the one they all dump on too, right? Yeah. She's not on the team. Well, she's not pretty like most of them.
Just cause, man. I mean, hell, she murders people and destroys things that they need just because she wants to, get credit for stuff, and real hardcore bitch in about every way,
Oh yeah, but I just mean before any of that, like they dumped on her. Maybe they even created her. We see a flashback back to like when they're only in junior high, right? And they're like prank calling her and taunting her.
Was that them that called her? I didn't.
I don't think it was specifically. I don't think it was specifically them. It could have been any girls. I'm not sure. Although probably at least some of them, I'd assume, that wound up on the team.
That's something kids do, isn't it? I mean, maybe not anymore because you'd probably go to jail for it or some shit. But bullying, I mean,
yeah,
that's
what I mean, though. I mean, bullying goes on, and it certainly affects people, and it hurts people. It has a terrible effect. Now imagine doing it to somebody like her, who is already mentally messed up. Is what I mean.
Like, flip that switch, and you're
right.
Ready to
like
go,
you get the like again, it's a show. It creates drama,
sure,
but yeah.
Sure.
But I get the feeling that maybe she could have gone either way, but they kind of helped create her. Like she was definitely mentally unstable anyway, but they made it worse by victimizing her.
Well, since we've already spoiled quite a bit of this thing, like the whole reason that they're stuck there is her fault. She destroys the black box, the transmitter. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the first or second episode when she's like, she did some nurse camp, or she knows a little bit about nursing and how to help people. She helps everybody and does stuff, and then she hears the other girls like, man, Misty really is awesome. We'd really be fucked without her. And she like is really happy, and she finds the box and just beats the shit out of it until it's like in pieces.
Yeah, that's right.
So that thing should be sending off a transmitter, right?
Right. Yeah. So again, you see like her fragile state of mind. Like it's the first time people have actually like wanted or needed her. After the girl breaks her leg on the field, she's like trying to help, and they're like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
Yeah.
Just shove her aside. It's like, we want real doctors to take care of this, not you idiot.
And we find out she actually does know a little bit, So
yeah, she helped save the coach's life. Or is that the coach? I don't know.
Yeah,
coach.
I think
who she's in love with.
I don't know who Travis's dad was. I don't know if he was just like an assistant coach, or like, why is Travis there? Why is Travis's brother there?
They're there because Travis's dad is rich, and he's the one that like paid for the plane.
No, I thought that was the other girl.
Oh, was it?
Well, one of the girls that paid for the plane.
Oh, okay. I knew somebody's dad was rich, and that was why they were on like a little private plane instead.
It may be the what do you call it? The girl that can see what's going to happen, like premonitions. That may be the rich girl, the one that was speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of girls, so it's a lot of characters to keep
It's a
track
lot
of
to
here.
keep track of, and like you said, a lot of them look similar.
Mhm.
They do.
Generic white girls. But yeah, I mean, I really love the show. When's the last time? I know you don't
Yeah,
watch a lot of television.
he is one of the coach's sons. The
Okay.
coach had Coach Martinez, who I assume, yeah. So he was another coach that
Okay.
I think he was the head coach really because he was
Oh, okay.
older, right? So he died immediately in the crash, and the
Mhm.
younger like assistant coach lived and had his leg cut off or whatever. So Travis and him, they were just coming along for the trip because their dad was on it. Okay, and you're right.
When's the
One of the
last time
girls,
that you watched a show that if the first season was really good, the second season was just as good or better? You know,
a long
it's
time
so
because I mean,
rare.
you know what? I really liked Westworld, and then
I didn't see
I
season 2.
don't even try. It becomes an incomprehensible mess. And
Oh,
talk
really?
about one where, unlike Yellowjackets, it was a perfectly logical stopping point.
Yep.
Anyway, it's
It's like
fine.
what I'm
It's a nice
saying.
self-contained story. It doesn't need to go on.
We
So
need to
yeah, I
take.
got about two. I watched the first episode, maybe got halfway through the second. I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore because everything breaks down to like factions and stuff. It's like these guys are against these guys who are against these,
Oh,
and you're just
wow.
like, I don't give a fuck. And it's like, and then, again, at this point, you don't know who's human or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to understand various people's motivations and keep the track of them. It's like these people want to do this, but they're opposed to that because, like, yeah, that made me mad because I really did enjoy the first season. The second
Yeah.
season didn't even get through 2 full episodes. I was like, enough of this nonsense, which is really
Yeah.
disappointing because I really did enjoy Westworld season 1.
We
So yeah,
really need to take a note from the Brits here and know when to end it. Like, stop
hmm
chasing the money and end it properly. Like
hmm
some stuff doesn't need to go on. But all if it's successful, it's getting another season, no matter what.
Speaking of British and short, this wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it was at least decently satisfying. And that was it the third day or something? I think it's the third day. Hold on. It's another one I watched within the last year. I want to say it's the third day.
Yeah, I love dramatic television quite a bit. It's one of my things I
It's
like a
not
lot. And
it's not my usual thing, but I jump into it every once in a while. I'm glad I did with Yellowjackets. Right now I'm having weird internet problems, which is interesting because I mean I'm not suffering here, so that's kind of weird. But I can't get
no,
to the
the
site I
quality
want to
looks
get to.
fine.
So that's kind of a weird inconsistency. So maybe there's just something going on with the site. Anyway, it's yeah, it's the third day on 2020. It's got it was an HBO. It was on
Okay,
HBO, and it starred Jude Law. Anyway, it's 6 episodes, so and it's the whole thing. It
perfect,
wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be, but at least it said what it needed to say and it got out. And it was 6 episodes.
cool. I'm gonna check that out.
It's not bad. It's like Jude Law winds up sort of stuck on this island, and if like a lot of places, like the island's kind of weird and pagan and stuff. And there's
Oh,
this
I like
whole
that.
thing about how he had like so it reminds you a little bit of something like Wicker Man, right? It's got kind of a Wicker Man vibe to it, type thing. You'll have characters running around in like animal masks and weird rituals, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. He has a weird backstory where like he had this young son that went missing and died. And anyway, it's pretty interesting. It wasn't quite as satisfying. I was hoping for something better, but it's still decent. But anyway, it's 6 episodes and pretty good. I mean, I like Jude Law, so that helps too. He's the main guy.
Yeah,
You'd
it's always
probably like it. I mean, I don't think it's gonna blow your mind or anything, but I mean, it's 6 episodes, and once it's done, like there aren't really lingering questions.
yeah.
It's done. Yeah. So
Did you watch the one? I don't remember what it was on. Maybe HBO. The with Hugh Grant. I think last year it came out.
no,
Hugh
Hugh
Grant
Grant.
and
Man, I
it's
haven't seen
the
anything with
lead
him in
actor.
ages. I haven't
That's
seen anything with Hugh Grant in ages.
that's a pretty good thriller. You
That's
find the
cool.
name. I can't remember. It's kind of a generic title. That's why I can't remember.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh John Mungo Grant. Damn, that Mungo really threw me off.
I like that.
Uh,
Okay, let's look at television. Hugh Grant on television.
Uh,
The Undoing.
That's it. With
No, I never
who is
heard of
that? Nicole Kidman. Yeah.
Yes.
I normally don't like her, but she's good in that show.
It's funny that's on HBO, and yet I never saw it even pop up on mine. That's a bizarre. Yeah,
Did you ever see the Gentleman?
No, don't know that either.
Damn, I cannot remember names tonight. Guy Ritchie's last movie.
Oh, okay.
I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot.
Oh yeah, I'd like to see it.
Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, yeah, he's good.
Killer cast. Colin Farrell. So many cool people in there.
Yeah, that's another movie that I remember hearing about when it was announced,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just I didn't even know it wound up coming out. Lost track of it. So that's good.
His
Guy
movies
Ritchie's
are
been pretty hit and miss the last few years. Yeah, that's for sure. Try watching that Legend of the Sword movie. Ugh, bad.
But I am a fan of his. I like his style.
Yeah, when it works, it really works.
Got a great soundtrack.
That's weird that I've never heard of The Undoing. I'll have to look on my HBO. I never saw that pop up at all.
Ben Graham like The Gentleman. I need to buy that one. I'm gonna see if it's on 4K.
Donald Sutherland's in there somewhere too.
Speaking of 4K, I just got this guy in The Godfather on 4K.
The Holy Grail.
Unfortunately, I had to buy part 3 to get part 2. So the first one is a single release, but not part 2.
Yeah. I mean, part 3, it's just one of those situations where the first 2 movies were legendary. So it's not like part 3 is terrible exactly. It's just that, there's such a drop in quality.
In comparison, yeah. I mean, it's not a bad movie. But
that's really the curse of it. People talk about Godfather 3 like it's this horrible abortion of a crime, when really it's just compared because those are 2 of the greatest movies of all time. And then, yeah. And then you and again, the third one feels so unnecessary too. I mean, talk about knowing when to stop. You pulled it off. You made this amazing movie. Then you made a sequel that's considered by many the best sequel ever. A lot of people like Godfather 2 more than 1. I'm one of them. I like 2 more than 1. I like the flashback stuff. I like the stuff, the old country stuff. But 3, that's not really something that really needed to be done. So that's another reason why it's so annoying.
We should do a show sometime just talking about sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about on this channel, but I mean, if you wanted to branch out a little bit, maybe. But
yeah, perhaps.
So many, man. Yeah,
a lot of sequels I just don't even bother with for that rare reason, right? There's a lot of movies where I just do not bother with the sequels.
Normally, I wouldn't have upgraded this, but this Godfather's my favorite movie ever. So I've got this on 4 different formats. So I keep looking over here because I got all my collection on the wall. I don't have a weird tick. I keep doing that.
What 4K did I? Oh yeah, I just got Akira's 4K. That's right.
Yeah, I don't think the format's gonna be around too much longer, but
well, like you said, that's kind of what has kick-started this for me because I was it's sort of a realization. I was shit, he's right. So I probably should get some. So that's why. Well, usually I buy movies at kind of a glacial pace. I've kind of picked it up over the last few months. Yeah, I'm I should get this while it's still possible to get it, type thing.
Last 6 months, I've definitely bought a lot more. I went a couple years there where I didn't buy hardly anything.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, I'm trying to pick it up.
I was just gifted Halloween on 4K. I haven't seen that yet. Haven't really picked anything else up too recently.
I will say, I always said, I don't see that well apparently compared to other people. I thought I wouldn't know the difference when I saw 4K, but I can. And it's not even a good thing, to tell you the truth. When I went to Sydney for Christmas, my parents had first time I saw the big, huge TV, my parents had the 4K TV.
Oh, yeah.
I thought something was wrong with the TV. I remember I put on, this is on TV, Home Alone was playing. And it's the scene where at the beginning where the pizza guy is driving up to the house and he knocks over the thing. Mm-hmm. 4K is, because you talk about stuff being clear and things like that, this is clear. 4K is more than being clear. 4K gives me a sense of actual space between things to the point where I'm not watching on a screen anymore. It's more like I'm looking at it through a window. And you can think, well, obviously that's ideal. That's great. But it's not, because at the end of the day, movies are still artificial. So it's had the backfiring effect, not for everything I watch, but a few things, where the 4K effect has shown me how artificial certain things are.
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm watching the best version of the movie. Now I feel like the movie is being shot in front of me and I'm standing on the sidelines. And that doesn't look real or good at all. I feel like I could reach over and touch Kevin McAllister. And that doesn't make me feel like I'm like a great visual, it worked for some things, but other things it felt weird. Like I said, I was messing around with the TVs thing. I was like, what's going on? Like the movement isn't right, the spacing isn't right. My parents are like, what the hell are you talking about? Because they don't know, right? I'm like, something's wrong. Like the way that car just drove up and knocked over the statue, I've seen it a million times, but that's not right. And they're like, what? Like I couldn't articulate what I meant, but that's what I mean. It wasn't like I was seeing like the shiniest, best version of the movie anymore. Now it was like the movie was literally happening in front of me in the same space that I'm in, that there's no screen separating us. I mean, I flip over and I'm watching the Hobbit movie, and once you go into all the green screen stuff, once again, the movie looked like a video game. And I know you could say, well, didn't it before? Like, not in 4K? I guess so. But now, again, everything pops so much. Like,
there are some disadvantages of it for sure.
It felt like some of it looked good. Like I said, I watched on Disney Plus. I watched the Muppet Christmas Carol. Ideal for that. Again, like I could see like all like the felt and stuff on their faces. Again, it's like I could touch. It's like I could touch them. But that time, it felt like a good thing. It's so weird. Like, yeah, that's the other thing. Obviously, you watch movies. People wear clothes, and you know what they're wearing. But now with 4K, I can see the details. I can see the fibers in their goddamn clothing. And instead of watching the scene, I'm looking at that jacket. I'm like, that jacket, the stitching, like, so it's kind of backfired for me. Like, it's too much. But it was a really weird awakening because I thought, people are always talking about like how stuff looks better on Blu-ray, and people are talking about how this effect looked good or that look, and I'm oblivious to most of it. People are like, "Oh, I can't stand the effects there." I'm just like, looked okay to me, So I thought 4K, I'm not going to notice, but I noticed hard. I really noticed 4K to the point that it takes me out of it. It's not like I'm watching a movie anymore. It's really weird. It really heightens the artificiality for me. Not everything. Some things that look good.
Yeah,
but
that's true. It doesn't play well for, say, makeup effects. You can really start to see the seams. That was on Blu-ray too, but this is even heightened version of that. So.
Right. So yeah, when you talk about like people that are really good at picking out like mistakes in movies, I'm not one of those people. At least visual. Like I can talk about an anachronism all day, but I mean, like I don't see the shadow of the boom mic. Probably I missed that, but now I'm probably going to see it in 4K because you see everything. Yeah. So.
Well, it's like DVD or a Blu-ray. When Blu-ray came out, I bought like everything. I like upgraded everything, and a lot of those transfers were not good. So I'd recommend to everyone before you go and blind buy a disc to go read about it on Blu-ray.com or somewhere. People will tell you if it's not a good transfer or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Very true. But yeah, so even though right now I don't have a 4K TV or 4K player, but I've over the last couple of years assembled a handful of 4K movies. I also just recently bought Blade Runner, and that one doesn't even come with another disc. It's just the 4K disc, so I can't even watch it yet. But I was like, I better get this or it will be gone. And that's one of my favorite movies of all time, so I'm fucking buying it. Because that was the other thing. At first, the 4Ks I was buying were like packs. They were 4Ks plus an ordinary Blu-ray. But lately, I've just been buying single-purpose 4Ks, so I can't even play yet. But I was like, at least the price seems to have come down on them a little bit. They're not as outrageous as they were.
Yeah, I mean, at least this comes with a digital code, so I can put it on Vudu or wherever.
And that's helpful too.
You guys still not have Vudu?
I don't think so.
I know Ryan was always telling me.
There were ones we had and ones we did. I don't think we had Vudu. We had what's it called?
Ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet. I was gonna say another color. We had Ultraviolet, and then they canceled. A few years ago, Ultraviolet, all the codes went bad. Yep. But there were a few movies I bought that had Ultraviolet, and now, as of like 3 years ago, that's all gone. Like I don't know.
We were able to take those Ultraviolet codes and transfer them to Vudu, so that sucks. You guys didn't have an option to do that.
No, we just lost them. Period.
Yeah, that sucks.
I mean, I didn't use them too much, but yeah, there's quite a few movies that I not even on purpose, like just have like digitally on the computer here. Like I've got like the 6th Harry Potter movie. Actually, for a long time, that was the only way I owned it. I just owned it digitally. I didn't even have the disc yet. Those are ones I'm going to buy in 4K. I'm going to buy all those in 4K.
Oh, yeah. Those are going to look good, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They'll do a proper treatment on those.
The last time I went to, it's funny, I've been to Best Buy twice in the span of a few weeks. And in between that time, the second time I came back, the movie section had shrunk again. It was scary. Like an entire row was gone. Like, and that was within a few weeks.
We have one.
That's another reason why I bought the that was another reason why I bought the Blade Runner when I did, because there was barely anything to choose from. I was like, well, this is the obvious one. Fucking buy it, because like only a few weeks before there had been an entire other row just gone now. So, yeesh.
Yep, I think Walmart's doing the same. They're going to limit it to like one end cap with just like new releases.
Yeah,
and
I almost never find the movies I want at Walmart anyway. Movies I want are too specific. Like the only movies they have at Walmart that I might buy are like Marvel movies. And since I've got Disney Plus, it never seems like a very pressing thing to buy a Marvel movie. I'm just like, why should I buy it? You know, even though I do own some. I own some.
Yeah, I own a few. Not too many. I may have Captain America though.
But I mean, as far as like, if I'm ever like looking for a movie, like it's probably not at Walmart.
I did get that Shivers on Blu-ray from Walmart, the best run release, I believe, for like $10. Man, it was an awesome price.
Actually, at the end of this month, when I have some more of my money, I'm going to go to, I told you before, the store, Sunrise Records, and look at the movies there. So expensive, but at least they're there. They're available. And like I said, they have a cool section of like more obscure things like giallos and stuff like that. And of course, all expensive, like minimum $35, minimum. Go up from there easily. But I'm so annoyed. I still don't know what to do about Police Story. So for a long time, I've owned a Blu-ray of the 2 police stories from Shout Factory. I was never too satisfied with it because they were on the same disc, which I don't like. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in and get the Criterion of it. And I ordered it from them because I thought, okay, I'd rather pay you guys than order with them. And I ordered that in the summer. Never came. It has never come. So I keep thinking about like whether I should cancel it or not. I mean, I might as well. And then I look because now that I can play now that I have a region free player, that's how I've gotten some of my kung fu movies. I have some other Jackie Chans. So now I'm looking at the site Eureka, which I bought some stuff from. It also has a 2-pack of the first 2 police stories, and comparison wise, they're very similar. It's hard to really say which is better. I'm like, should I just get that? So I've just sort of been hemming and hawing over that for a while.
Probably a lot cheaper, right? That Eureka is a lot cheaper.
Not by a lot, but it is. It is cheaper in the end because I mean it's a lot here. It's in Canadian dollars, so a little less American, but it would have been $66 plus tax. So that would have carried me well over $80.
Wow.
You know, for the 2 movies. So yeah, I definitely would have get the cheaper option from Eureka. I mean, obviously pounds cost more than dollars, but lower. But the annoying thing is I would have just had it because it was actually at the store. And then I went back and it was gone. And I said, fine, order it then. And then it just never came.
That's fucked up. Does it like your order status? Does it say it's like pending?
I don't know. Like, I didn't even want to go in. And then like before Christmas, when my parents were here, my mom said, well, I'll talk to them since you don't want to. So she asked him and he said, yeah, you might just want to cancel. Like, we can't seem to get anything from Criterion to go through is what he said. So I don't even know if the order is still official. And that was Christmas time. You know, I ordered this at the end of July and it is now March. So
almost a year later. Wow.
I also thought, you know, by now they might have just restocked it in their damn store, but I guess they get them the same way. So obviously not. So it's just too bad. So literally, if I had just bitten down and bought it the first time, and I would have paid a lot, but at least I would have had it and I wouldn't be dealing with all this. So that's annoying. But that's the other thing that I've been buying lately, of course, is now that I got the region free player for Christmas, I'm trying there's a lot of cool like martial arts movies that have like UK releases that I've gotten some of, and I want to continue that. So that's fun. And Eureka's especially good because you don't pay shipping. So that really helps.
I know another good company that a lot of people order from is Umbrella, I believe, out of Australia.
Oh yeah, yes.
And they're supposed to have a really good selection of, I think, a lot of the same transfers that are just cheaper.
Arrow does good stuff. And the thing about Arrow is,
Arrow
even though it
does,
is British, Arrow now, certain releases you can get like for North America as the Arrow thing. They've got a few at that store. But again, tremendously expensive, like $49.99 base.
Arrow, I might put Arrow over Criterion sometimes, but
Yeah.
those two are.
But they don't seem to
usually-
have at least they don't have a selection that appeals to me as much as Criterion, though. I can't really think of any Arrow releases where I'm like, I really wish I had it. There were a few that I looked at that I thought were cool. And I'm like, I'm not going to drop this much money on a movie I've never even seen, though. Like, they had like that Psycho, something Psycho. It was about like the weird like biker gang that does like a spell and becomes undead or something. And I remember it was just so beautiful. I was just like, wait a second, I'm not going to pay $50 some for something I've never even seen. But I was entranced by how good the Arrow presentation was, the packaging and all the special features and stuff like that. It's called Psycho something. I can't remember, but people,
Psycho
hardcore
Gorman?
horror people would know it.
Not is it?
No,
a new movie?
that's something. It's something else. I know Psycho Gorman is a thing, but it's something else. But anyway,
I think Ryan loved that one.
Oh yeah, very possibly.
Very.
No, I think this was like 70s. I think it was a 70s movie. It's like this biker gang, and they're all into like satanic shit, and they do some sort of ritual where they kill themselves so they can come back as like undead monsters or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure I'd like to see it, but no, I don't want to pay like $60 some just to have an amazing version of it when there's other stuff I should be spending money on. But that was just how entranced I sort of was by this whole Arrow thing. I was like, this is like such great presentation. But yeah, if we want to get an Arrow, get a movie I actually know, might be a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly I want to get more Criterions too. I've made a list. Let's take a quick look at my. Of course, now everything's going.
Speaking of Criterion.
Oh yes.
The Cornelius collection is in here.
Oh, that riffraff getting in. How'd you get past the bouncer? We didn't even have a bouncer. Where are my notes? My notes have become so complicated. Okay, notes, films. That's martial arts films. Ah, yes. Of course, the big one is Videodrome, which I would have had at least on DVD if I'd pulled the trigger a million years ago. But a lot of ones you expect, like the 1946 Beauty and the Beast, Seventh Seal.
That's one of my very few Criterions that I do own.
The Seventh Seal, Videodrome, The Thin Red Line, which we did a show on not too long ago, Seven Samurai.
Oh yeah, yeah, they did a lot of those Kurosawa. They may have done them all. The samurai movies.
Yeah, I think so. So those are the ones off the top of my head there.
I think it was them
as Criterion editions.
I don't know who put out the Zatoichi Blind Swordsman collection, but all of those
I think that's also Criterion.
Yeah.
I think it's also
really
because the thing is Criterion has their their thing where they take movies and give it like the prestige thing. Right. But then there's also like a lot of foreign movies that they just release, because I own a few Japanese movies like that. Like I remember I told you about Fighting Elegy. Like Fighting Elegy is pretty much just a bare bones DVD, but it is Criterion because they're the ones that released it, because that's what they do with certain foreign movies. And I think that's how the Zatoichi thing is, which was another thing I could have bought from Video Difference when they went out of business if I was fast enough, but I wasn't.
Oh, that thing was $250 or something. It was ridiculous.
But that's how I have Late Spring, for instance, the Ozu film.
Yeah.
That's a Criterion edition. It's not really anything amazing. It's not like a big presentation like some of them are, but it's good to have, and I'm really glad I have it. But now I want Early Spring, goddammit. And I want the Ozu sets, which have... I don't know if they actually have Blu-ray releases. I think the Ozu sets are still just DVDs.
That's what I was going to ask, if they were Blu-ray.
Like, you can get the movies individually Blu-ray. I was looking at them on Amazon not too long ago. But they have these sets. There's silent Ozu, there's early Ozu, and there's late Ozu, I think. And I always wanted to get late Ozu. As far as I know, those sets only still exist as DVD and not Blu-ray. But you can get the individual movies on Blu-ray. So that's kind of actually where I'm caught right now. That I'm the next thing I get will probably either be one of those Ozu Criterions, or will be some, foreign martial arts movie. That's where I'm at right now. So either Japan by way of Criterion, or like Hong Kong by way of UK. So we'll see. We'll see. But anyway,
I was going to name some of the arrow titles I have. I have more of those than I do the.
Yeah, I don't know any arrows yet.
I can't see my my labels from here. Need to get my glasses prescription changed.
I forgot that been mentioned when we were talking about Guy Ritchie that he did Aladdin. I was surprised. Like I expected to really hate that Aladdin remake, and it's actually okay.
I didn't even watch it, man. A lot of those live action have been terrible.
Well, I thought that one was going to be terrible. I don't think it's terrible at all. But
did you see Dumbo?
No, I will not watch it. You know, I wouldn't watch Dumbo. That's what's his name? That's
Tim Burton.
That's Tim Burton. So no, there was no way I was touching that because it was Tim Burton.
That's the only reason I watched it.
No, that's why I wouldn't watch it. I gave the other ones a chance, and none of them are that good.
Modern day Burton, it's not terrible, but for a remake or a live action remake of Dumbo, it's not good.
But no, Aladdin. There were two things that surprised me. Two things surprised me about Aladdin. One was just overall, I expected to be a lot worse, and it's actually mostly okay. Two, the worst part of it is not Will Smith. See, I was sure he would easily be the worst part, right? Now, he's not that good, and obviously he's nothing compared to Robin Williams, but the worst part is actually the guy playing Jafar, because he's so lame and boring. Like, he's like the least charismatic and interesting and memorable Disney villain. He's just bland and boring as hell. The guy just sleepwalks through it. He's like, oh, princess, now you'll marry me. It's like, oh, who gives a shit, you know? So he was actually the worst part.
Did Will Smith downplay that? Because there's no way he could have done Robin Williams close to that.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't, if you saw it, you wouldn't be surprised by how he does it. He just does it as himself. Like, he's not trying. Yeah, I know. And I expected him to be the worst part. I don't think it was the worst part. It's Will Smith doing Will Smith, just like Robin Williams did Robin Williams.
Gotcha.
Really. So, you know, he just makes his own Will Smith style jokes, which aren't terrible, but they aren't really good either. And I mean, as much as I love Robin Williams, there is some stuff from that performance that is kind of stupid, like where he's yelling at him to be himself, and he's actually a bee. Like, I don't know if that's exactly is that actually comedy? Is that comedy gold, really? Like, just using the play on the word bee?
I like it.
No, I mean, I like a lot of the stuff he did, but some of that is lazy.
No, I agree with this. The Jungle Book was terrible. I saw that one in the theater.
I liked the Jungle Book.
No, and I like the movie. I like the original movie.
But in all these cases, I like the original way more. But I was fine with Jungle Book.
See, I didn't see Lion King. I did that, didn't I?
The thing about Lion King, it almost feels like it's not a movie. It almost feels like you're watching nature footage that kind of syncs up with the plot of Lion King, and then like people are doing voices over it. Like, that's how it feels to me.
The one thing
it is stupid. And the one thing I'll give Lion King is the best part actually is Seth Rogen and Billy, whatever his name is, are really good Timon and Pumbaa.
Oh, that's good.
They are really good. Like, I was really impressed by how good they are. Their comedic chemistry was like through the roof. I couldn't believe how good they were together. But I mean, the movie itself feels pretty lifeless.
You know, see if we touched on all of those. I'm trying to think.
Well, I mean, there's Beauty and the Beast,
Beauty and the Beast, yeah. I've saw that.
The effects really hurt it because suddenly things that look great animated, hand drawn, look like garbage in this. Like, like when you have like candlesticks and clocks and dishes running around with faces, it looks all cutesy if it's hand drawn. But if you turn it into this CGI stuff, it looks stupid. So. Plus, they added stuff to that plot that they didn't need. They had this whole thing about a flashback to her mom dying in Paris. Like, we don't need that. Who cares? It did have an extra song that I liked a lot, though. So after the part where the Beast, has to make the horrible decision that, he's going to let her go. Like, he loves her, but he knows she has to let her go. In the original movie, that just happens. In this movie, they add a song where he sort of like sings about his anguish. It's actually a very good, powerful song. I like that. So, there's good and bad things about it. People were really hard on Emma Watson, which I don't think is fair at all. Emma Watson was really good, and she sings pretty well. No, she can't sing as well as the original singer, but it's not like she's terrible. But people were really harsh. Like, she's not pretty enough. She doesn't sing well enough. I'm like, Jesus, people have high standards for these things. mean, it's Emma Watson. She's pretty. She's talented. Jesus. But people can be pretty relentless.
I didn't like how Josh Gad danced with another man at the end.
I don't think I didn't even notice. That was the other thing, though. That's like Disney loves doing that sort of backhanded stuff, right? They're like, oh, we'll include gay people. We'll just shove them off to the side and make them silly little things. It's like, and then they get mad and they're like, why are the gay people mad at us about representation? It's like, well, maybe because like after years of pretending we don't exist, your idea of acknowledging we exist is to make us like gag characters off to the side, you know? And I mean, again, if you're going to do Beauty and the Beast, you can't like make Gaston gay or the Beast gay because it would change the plot completely. But I'm just saying that kind of stuff is not very helpful. So I can understand being, I don't think infuriated. I don't think anybody needs to overreact, but I can understand being gay and like being annoyed. I'm like, oh, yeah, great representation there, Disney. Like the idiot there just dancing around called LeFou. He's the gay guy. Like, thanks a lot.
Belle should have been trans. I know that much. Anyway, what else? We leaving anything out?
Oh no, I mean they all got it. So let's see. Well, actually, we haven't gotten to. I mean, Mulan, I won't watch. It looks too serious.
Mulan looks good. I'm not going to watch it, but it looks decent.
But it looks like, unlike all the others, they've removed anything light or comedic about it. Like, there's obviously no Eddie Murphy dragon. There doesn't seem to be any jokes at all. They're just like, here's Mulan, and we're just going to tell the serious version of the story, which is fine because Disney does not own that story. It's a legend. It's been made into lots of movies actually, but it's a remake of the Disney version, and the Disney version, being Disney, has lighthearted moments and things like that. It looks like this remake, they're just like, no, none.
They're made for children. I mean, they've got lighthearted moments.
But as far as I can tell, this Mulan one is not doing that. Like, there's no singing and there's no jokes.
I don't think it did well. I mean, I think it went straight to streaming, didn't it? Like streaming on Disney Plus. That was like one of the
It did look good. I mean, the actress made a huge like faux pas by opening her mouth at the wrong time. There's protests going on in Hong Kong, about the government cracking down. She's like, I stand with police, and everyone's like, oh, you fucking fascist. And they're kind of right. Because I didn't even realize that. She didn't have to say that. We talked about this before. When you're like a celebrity from a place like China, it is difficult. You'll get picked on in the West and criticized if you support your terrible government. But at the same time, if you don't support your terrible government, what kind of consequences might that have for you and your family? It's the same thing about like the Russian hockey players right now. Like, I don't think most of them are very happy at all about Russia invading Ukraine.
Of course not. Most aren't happy about it.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, Ovechkin, in particular, has come out in the past as being like Putin's boy. Now, that looked bad enough then. It looks way worse now. But at the same time, if Ovechkin's going to stand up and say, like, I renounce him now, like, this is wrong, like, we'd all applaud it. But again, what exactly would be the consequences for him and his family if he did that? So it's a difficult situation to come from a country like that. So I don't know if that was the actress's actual thoughts on what was going on, or she felt it was just, or even if she'd been compelled, she might have had handlers or agents or something and said, look, you need to have a statement about this right now, and you better support the government. So, but anyway, she said what she said. Of course,
maybe just not say anything.
And as far as I know, I don't know what the options were there, but that's why I said she had opened her mouth. So that coincided with the movie coming out, and people were like, I'm not supporting that shit, So I don't know the actual story or her actual feelings. Maybe she is a brainwashed, because a lot of them are, and it's not their fault.
Sure. That's propaganda all day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the new Top Gun movie, whatever the hell that's called, they took the Taiwanese flag off of the bomber jacket.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Little bit of pressure there.
We already talked about the embarrassing ass kissing done by John Cena.
Oh God!
Like, that really shows the state of the world, where this big American star just bows down to China and apologizes to them in their own language.
Do you like money?
About his terrible mistake. Like, that's just embarrassing and sad.
It wasn't so stupid. Yeah.
But anyway, as far
he apologized in Mandarin. Motherfucker speaks Mandarin.
Yeah, so Dumbo and Mulan I think are the only ones I haven't seen that have come out. I think. I've seen all the others. Let's see. Aladdin, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Jungle Book from a few years ago. there any others?
The Jungle Book may have been one of the first.
Yeah, it was. It was before it really became a thing. It was kind of an outlier at the time because they didn't know they were going to go that route where it's like, yep, they're all getting remakes.
I think they may have done some of those just to keep the rights. Like, because if you don't do something with the property in a
Oh,
certain
Disney's
period
the
of time,
king of that. It's funny.
yeah.
I was having this conversation with somebody else the other day because, as I said to you, because we talked about copyright too. Because, like, when we were talking about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen
Mhm.
and stuff about things being, I believe that once an author dies, I don't even think that his descendants should keep control of the creative stuff. But Disney, they're the kings of it. That's why copyright is what it is because they would have lost Mickey Mouse a long time ago, and they keep fighting it and extending it and making sure the laws stay so that they can keep hold of stuff. And yeah, they have to make use of things like that to keep other things. Because the most ironic thing about Disney probably is yes, Mickey Mouse is an original Disney character, but think of all the stuff Disney's famous for. Most of it's just public domain stuff they took themselves. It's like fairy tales,
Yeah.
Cinderella doesn't belong to anybody. Maybe the Brothers Grimm, I guess, but they didn't file any copyrights or anything like that. There's no Brothers Grimm descendants that are now millionaires because of Cinderella,
Oh, I got one right here.
So the hypocrisy of Disney is pretty thick
Ben
on that
Grimm
one.
is one of the descendants.
Oh, right. That's right. There's a Grimm. There you go. And he must be pissed because he's not benefited one bit from his ancestors' windfall. But yeah, so I mean, the hypocrisy of Disney is pretty thick there because a lot of the stuff they did. I mean, it's true. Other stuff like say, there was stuff where they did acquire the rights and pay for it, like they did with Mary Poppins and things like that. But other ones, they were all too happy. They were like, oh, this is a fairy tale. This is public domain. We can do what we want with it. And then they act like once they make that's the definitive version and it's theirs. So I'm sorry, but anybody who wants to can make a Cinderella movie. It's not yours.
Yep. But I guess we can go ahead and wrap up if you want.
Right. So let's talk about the climax, sort of, because like you said,
I definitely want to talk about that.
Right. So you have, as we said, it's sort of a culmination of like showing how evil and terrible men can be. So you kind of don't feel too bad about her murdering them and them dying. And then you get to the end where she finally does give birth to, surprisingly at the time, looks like a baby. And then all she wants to do is get away from it. And she's like near a hospital, but she's not at a hospital. Is she like a hospital parking lot or something?
She's in an ambulance.
Right. Why was she in an ambulance? Oh, somebody just called an ambulance, right?
Yeah.
Like she was going into labor and somebody called an ambulance.
I think they thought she was dead at one point, like in the blood bank bus.
Right. Because that's what because like after like she loses consciousness, I think, if I'm remembering properly. She loses consciousness giving birth. It like gets away. And then I think all she can think about is getting away. Like, is she trying to find it or get away from it? Because she goes on to the bus that has the blood stuff on it. Or no, that was before that, wasn't it?
Well,
because there's two different buses. There's two different buses she goes on, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the one with the blood, and she goes specifically to get the blood.
Right.
Like that's why she goes, and she steals somebody's gun or something. Does she have a gun at this point? Doesn't she like hold somebody at gunpoint, saying she's taking the blood or something? She definitely threatens
she does
the
have
driver.
a gun. Yeah.
I think she had stolen a gun at this point. So this is still before she's given birth, right?
Because
she needs the blood. So at this point, she's still drinking blood. So she must be close. Oh, right. So she causes it to like crash. Isn't that it? She's trying to drink the blood. She's close to giving birth. She needs the blood. She takes the guy like hostage or whatever. And somehow the bus crashes. And that's why she gets picked up in the ambulance. The bus, whoever else was on the bus, which might have just been the driver, dies. So she gets picked up and put in the ambulance. And they think maybe she's dead too.
Yeah.
And then she gives birth either there or in a car because it takes her to like she doesn't get into the hospital. She gets to the parking lot. She maybe gives birth in there or in a car because I remember then she just wants to get away because I think she just leaves the baby on the seat, right? Because somebody like leans in to look at the baby and like it must mutate. It must mutate into a monster because you see the guy get pulled in and obviously it kills him and eats him.
Well, the truck, she stole a truck and it stalled, like has engine problems or something. So she goes to this place to see if the mechanic can fix the car, leaves the baby in the car. That's when the baby bursts out of the human baby and turns into a monster and kills that guy and then disappears. She doesn't know where it is at that point.
Right. So she doesn't know. And then she just decides to try it, and she's covered in blood, which is the funniest part, because when she tries to get on that bus that has like the rugby players on it or whatever, she's like covered in blood, and the guy does not seem to care at all. But he just says, "Oh, you might not want to ride. These guys are bad guys," which is really underselling it. She's like, "That's okay, I'll get on."
Dude,
And then begins the scene where they all like accost her, and again, they don't care at all that she looks like
that's
she's covered in
exactly what I was
blood.
gonna say.
She's covered in blood, looks like hell, and they have no questions or observations at all. All they know is that she's an attractive woman, and they're gonna like rape her, I guess. And they're
Yeah,
just like they're
she's
grabbing her and making lewd comments and pushing her around and singing songs.
she's
And at
covered
one
in
point,
blood.
yeah,
Just gave birth like 20 minutes ago. These
they
guys
have
don't care. She's
they have
getting
no
gang
thoughts
raped.
on this. They're not even curious. Yeah, we're gonna do a gang rape. We're gonna run a train on her here.
That
And at one
seems
point,
very odd to me.
and even to make it even worse, the driver's like, "Hey, you assholes, leave some for
Yeah,
me too." So his plan is like, once you guys are done like
I,
raping the
I
shit
won't.
out of her,
I won't
I'll pull
sloppy
over.
30th. You
I'll
know.
pull over and take my turn. So of course, and she's saying at this point she knows she saw some of the goop. She saw some of the goop. She's like, "Oh, there's like there's a creature on here," and they completely ignore her. And of course, it attacks the driver, kind of like a face hugger, sort of,
Yeah, kind of
causing it to crash. And I mean,
explode
that's it.
into a giant
Explode.
explosion.
Yeah, and yet I guess supposedly she's supposed to survive. I can't remember. Does it like show that she survives?
Yeah.
Like, does it show her? Yeah, and then it just like it's close to the ocean. It makes a getaway, jumps into the water, and the
Mhm.
movie ends. So it's quite the. It packs a lot into like the final like 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, it does, and it just kind of ends, just
Yeah,
dramatically.
it's like he made it. He got his goal. He hit the ocean, and it's. I mean, it makes sense because that's all he wanted. But I don't know. It's weird because they almost make it seem like at certain points, like she hates carrying this monster inside him, but she is also, and obviously she does have to do what he says because he's like, I can cause you pain and rip you apart if you don't do what I say,
Yeah,
obviously. But then there are also parts where he's like, I'm your baby and I'm part of you, and you can see like she's getting treated terribly by everybody else in the world anyway. She came
right,
out of an abusive relationship. Now she's in a place where everybody just wants to like abuse her,
right.
take advantage of her or whatever like that. So the point is like she's starting to feel something for it, kind of. And then it just happens completely matter of factly. She gives birth and it abandons her, which is
Yeah.
always the plan, but the movie almost makes you think maybe something different will happen there. But
Well,
it
when the
doesn't.
baby was born, she was talking to it. It couldn't talk to her, but
And yeah, and she's
she
saying,
was
like,
like, "What
can
do I
you
do
talk?
next? What do I
Yeah.
do next?"
And that's another thing, like, we don't know about the rules. Like,
Right.
that's why I wish they made it like a point of saying when it started talking to her. Like,
Mhm.
we're not sure if for that first murder, is that the first time it's talking to her? Because if it is, she's not acting at all surprised. She's just arguing with it. At first, we don't hear it. You just hear her arguing with herself. She's like, I can't do that, or like, don't make me. But it seems like we should have had a scene where it like first like announces itself to her
Mhm.
and she's like really freaked out. Maybe, like most people would, thinks they're going insane. Like, I think I'm going crazy.
Well, I think she does too. I think she slowly loses her mind because at first she's very apprehensive, obviously, as you would be about killing a guy. That's
Yeah.
a guy she hates, but she still
Yeah.
doesn't want to kill him. But and then gradually it gets easier and easier for her, where she just is murdering people left and right.
Right. And I know you could say, like, with the monster isn't real, but of course he is. We see it get inside her. So it's not
Yeah.
like it's making the thing that it's all in her head. So it's interesting because you have the juxtaposition of it saying, is it as it's growing inside her, it has like it needs more and more blood. It also coincides with perhaps her developing her own bloodlust. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. They blur the lines there, right? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
because she says, like, is she just losing her mind? Well, if she is, at least she is for a darn good reason. She's not like
Sure.
losing her mind out of
Sure.
nowhere. Well, though, again, you can use the whole thing as a metaphor for pregnancy, of course.
Right. Well, you couple that with her cycle of abuse for her entire life, and kind of
Yeah.
goes hand in hand.
Right. So it's showing that I do like it from that perspective because usually whenever we talk about pregnancy and birth, it's all the positive things about it. The miracle of birth and how great it is and how everybody must be so thrilled and it must be wonderful to be pregnant. They show like sort of the dark, scary side. I get it. It's not realistic. That's not what pregnancy does to you. But still, I think it is fair, at least from the male perspective, because we don't carry children or give birth
Mhm.
and people can say, "Oh, that's sick. That's a terrible thing to say," but to equate that with a parasite,
Right.
I don't think that's completely out of left field. It still
No.
is weird. I mean,
No.
again, it's your child, but it's a thing. It's a
Well,
separate
it's
thing growing inside you,
yeah.
and it's taking nourishment from you, kind of like a parasite. So
That's an
so
easy one to make. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I know there's certain people that will be offended by that, but no, I like it. I think it's an interesting point to make.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like it's saying birth is bad. I mean, it's like we're all born. What's the alternative?
Right. Well, it's such a beautiful experience, and this, that, and the other. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's
I
gross.
mean, I'm sure
it's
it is.
It's like most biology. It's gross.
Yeah, exactly.
And it certainly isn't pleasant. Any woman will tell you, you'll have women that are happy to be mothers and we're happy to do it, but they say it's not like birth was a great thing. It was a painful, messy thing because that's what it is.
And then you've got this monster to deal with. It comes out.
Yeah, that's the other thing, though. I guess you can say this is if you want to make the argument about that too, is you could say in a way the Parasite's more ideal because once it's out, it has no more demands on you. Whereas with a real child, once it's out, now the fun's really beginning. Because at least before you were carrying it around, but now it's a separate thing. So no more nights out on the town. You're gonna have to stay in with this screaming thing. Of course, another movie that really takes that to the extreme about how awful it is once it's out is Eraserhead, right?
Oh, yeah.
The baby in Eraserhead is just a goddamn monster, spending the whole time making it's horrific to look at and makes the most ear-splitting sounds you'll imagine.
Yep.
And yet the mother, they have this burden on them. They have to take care of it. So that might be the ultimate expression of what a burden and how awful babies are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a very big stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and wrap up if you want to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's a short movie. I mean, I think we got into the meat of it. Like, it's not as deep as some movies, but as we said, there are some themes there that we talked about, and there are some metaphors and things. And plus, we had some digressions tonight. We talked about collecting movies, and somehow we got into the whole thing again about racism and voice acting and where all these things, and that is tough stuff. And
we're hitting all of our points,
Yeah. I mean, I don't regret anything I said. I realize they're complicated issues again, and I realize it's difficult when you're only talking from sort of one perspective. But I mean, certainly Jay and I are trying to come from, a place of this, of, trying to be mindful of other perspectives and things like that. Because again, we certainly don't want to just slam the door on things and be like, you're wrong and things like that, or just dismiss things. Because again, like when people bring up things that are racist and like, I don't want to just say, no, you're wrong, or that doesn't happen. And as we said, but what we were talking about before, I still think context does matter when it comes to certain things that could be construed a certain way, like maybe racism, like the Tropic Thunder example. Like, no, I don't think. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the movie or anything. I don't have any dog in this fight, really. But do I think Tropic Thunder is a racist film? No. Like, I get what they were doing. I feel like if you understand what they were doing, it's not offensive. It's actually, sort of commentary on things that are offensive. But anyway.
Well, I'm actually surprised we talked about this movie as much as we did, considering it's not really a lot there. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just a very straightforward movie.
Yeah, it's a short movie. Woman has a parasite. It forces her to kill people. It eventually comes out.
We really fleshed it out pretty good, I think.
Yeah. As we said, it's interesting. It gives us some things to talk about because of a lot of stuff that isn't explained, right? Like, we don't really understand what happened to the rest of this race, why they died out. We don't understand why this one only came forth millions and millions of years later. We don't understand why it seems to specifically need a human. We don't know
the rules. They didn't give us
we don't know the rules.
No eating after midnight, got to have a human baby.
Yeah. I'm happy when movies give us the rules. That's what I hate about movies that give us the rules and then break their own rules. I can't stand stuff like that. You just establish what's supposed to work and not work in this world, and then you've gone against it or contradicted it in some way. To me, that's an unforgivable sin for a movie, even if it's some cheesy B movie. I don't care. Don't break your own rules. But as we said, this movie is pretty free flowing because it's very vague and does not necessarily set any rules. The only rule we really know is it seems to have the same gestation period as a human baby. It seems to need the 9 months. And the added thing, of course, is it needs the human blood to keep going, and it forces her to do so. But yeah, we got into it. But
and Gary Oldman's awesome. So
yeah, so I mean, if there's we usually prefer to watch a movie in its original language and with the subtitles. But if you're gonna have to watch a dub, it's at least cool to have a performance by Gary Oldman. And I have to say, like, it's not like a painfully awkward dub. Having watched a couple times, you know, dubs are always going to be awkward.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've seen worse.
Yeah, the only, not counting, of course, animation, because that's a whole different thing. Because all animation is dubbed, by the way. But the only context I usually can accept dubs is like, you know, like kung fu movies, because it's almost part of their charm anyway.
Right.
Although a lot of kung fu movies I do prefer to, even those I prefer to watch subtitles. It just sort of depends upon my own history with the movie. Like, for instance, like something like some of those Jackie Chan movies, they got releases over here in the 90s. I'm just so used to those dubs that they don't bother me. I'm pleased to watch them with subtitles if I can, but I don't mind the dubs, especially as we said before. By that time, unlike earlier movies where Jackie's dubbed by somebody else, sometime in the 90s, he started dubbing himself. So that adds a little bit of, makes it a little better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I hope we can do like Rumble in the Bronx sometime soon. That's because that's on right now with the dub, and I enjoy that dub. So that would.
I'll just rent it if I have to.
Yeah,
so we can do it. I know we've talked about it for years now.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Maybe Orc, if he's around, I know he likes that one too. If we can get him involved, but anyway. But as for the show going forward, I have some sort of lofty ideas. I don't know if we'll get there or not, but there are a couple things that have occurred to me the last little while that I've got access to. So sometimes we're kind of unsure about where we're going. I mean, this is nothing set in stone, but at least this time we have some options, at least. Mm-hmm. So it's good to know that, like, whatever, I mean, hopefully, you know, next week we'll, you know, definitely have an episode and we'll be able to do them, but we shouldn't be scrambling. We shouldn't be like deciding like the day before. I think we'll have this figured out because there's a few things I want to get to, but it's fun to do a movie like this beforehand too, just because it's a little simpler, I guess. Man, I can't find anything about this director. Like,
I don't think he was very prolific, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. Did he direct the sequel?
Good question. I don't speak German, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, I would be interested.
I think so, though.
I figure
she's in it. I know the lead. Man, we never even said her name. Emmanuel Escarou.
So her name, Emmanuel Escarou.
I'll let you do the French pronunciation there.
And and again, his name is Alain Roback. But she gives an interesting performance for sure. I mean, a lot of the movie, it's a body horror type movie, and she has a very alluring body, so it works from that perspective, right?
The Cable Channel 11 will be on tomorrow night with a Nightmare on Elm Street retrospective.
Right, so that's Jess's channel, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try to watch tomorrow some night, of that. Jess and Eastern, Jess and I are hopefully doing another animated commentary next week at some point. He's busy with some stuff, so we'll figure it out.
I'll try and come on there too if you'll have me.
Yeah, for sure. We'd be glad to have you. But I know he's busy the next few days, so probably won't be till early next week that we figure out the details on that. I'm pretty open right now. Like, I've got a pretty good schedule right now. So aside from this show, we're here on a Thursday. We're not usually here on a Thursday, but sometimes we do have to move this around. But we try for Tuesday, Wednesday if we can do it. So hopefully that is what we'll do next week. So anyway, thanks a lot for everybody that joined us for Baby Blood and the other stuff we got into. So that'll do. Yeah, that'll do for tonight.
That'll do, guys. Thanks for watching, guys.
See you later.
As always, have a good night.
Thanks a lot.